Meek creature!
Corgo's dance.
Your big nose, I'm big nose.
A grandpa of damnation. Oh. I've been awake for 3 minutes. This woke me up. It better be good.
Meek creature!
Already Tolfk.
Get ready to LFG.
Meek creature!
Soar show. Thanks, dude, for the soar show.
Meek creature! Meek creature! Meek creature! Meek creature!
Zachy, give me a mango loco. I know you have extra. I saw the picture. He had like 20 in a fridge. Name?
Hi, I'm Jonathan Rogers, Game Director on Path of Exile 2.
Prove it.
Welcome to GGG Live. Well, it's been a little over 3 months since we launched Early Access, so it's about time for our first major content update. Today, we're going to show you an exclusive reveal of Path of Exile 2, Dawn of the Hunt, which launches on April 4th. Twitch drops are enabled on today's livestream, so make sure you follow the instructions below in order to claim your Executioner's Guillotine finisher effect. Now in today's stream, we're going to take you on a deep dive into the new Dawn of the Hunt update. We'll cover a new class, 5 new Ascendancy classes, and huge expansions on character systems like unique items and support gems. After that, it's on to the in-game improvements, including changes to systems, a bunch of new encounters, and lots of other content. We're going to finish up today with a live Q&A session where Ziggy D will ask Path of Exile 2's game directors, myself and Mark, your questions from Twitch chat. Now we have a lot to cover today, so let's get started with a trailer for Path of Exile 2, Dawn of the Hunt.
We as Mary are guided by the Spirit. It provides prey, shelter, even love. But for me, one day, all that were changed. The Spirit, it showed me something. Something forbidden.
We know, Drawley.
And to defend all I loved, I used it.
We know.
I lost everything that day. But fate weren't finished with me yet. I'll right the wrongs I've done. I'll do what I must, no matter the cost. I will hear the Spirit once more.
Don't make me kill you! I shall bathe in your blood!
No, I saw it. I'm leaving. We all saw it. Everybody saw it. I'm leaving. I saw it. Why like a Calandra? I saw it. You can't trick me. I saw that. Fucking assholes. Oh no.
Now, as you can see, in Dawn of the Hunt, we're introducing the first new class since early access to PoE 2, the Huntress. The Huntress is a spear-wielding Asmeri warrior. Born into a society with strict traditions, she was exiled from her homeland after using the power of a skill gem to defend her village. As a dexterous spear user, she specializes in both melee and ranged combat, dashing into and out of battle. Spears have extended range and a short dash, but unlike other melee weapons, you can also throw them. In order to make a hybrid ranged and melee character work, we had to do a lot of thinking about ways to make it fun to both enter and exit melee range. The first skill you will get as a Huntress is Whirling Slash. As well as striking in a circle around you, this skill creates a whirlwind that blinds your enemies. Leaving the whirlwind will make it explode. The more Whirling Slash is used, the bigger the whirlwind, and the bigger the explosion. Once you're out of there, you'll want to follow up with something ranged. Whip your spear around to shoot twisters towards your foes. These twisters bounce off walls and can hit enemies multiple times. You can also throw twisters inside a whirlwind to shoot out extra tornadoes that do way more damage. In her offhand, the Huntress will usually want to hold a buckler, which allows you to do a new skill, Parry. While holding down Parry, your character will counterattack any incoming attack from monsters near you, stunning them. In addition, the monsters will take extra attack damage from your follow-up strike. Some specific skills are designed to be used after a parry and have extra effects. Disengage is a skill that does a quick jump back, damaging enemies in front of you, and it can be used to interrupt other actions, like dodge roll. If you use it against a parried enemy though, it causes an explosion and gives you a frenzy charge. Just be careful. If you parry too much, you're going to get stunned and possibly killed. You can combine this combo with Whirling Slash. Slash, parry, disengage, and you'll get an explosion from the disengage and the Whirling Slash. The Huntress also has a variety of elemental spear throw attacks. You could use Lightning Spear to bounce lightning between your foes. Or you could throw explosive spears into the ground. These spears take a while to detonate, but when they do, they'll incinerate anyone caught in the blast. All spear throws on the Huntress can also be empowered by frenzy charges. For example, explosive spears will do an even larger explosion and leave fire on the ground. And these empowered versions can activate even more combos. Using Whirling Slash over ground fire will suck it into the whirlwind, adding fire to the explosion. Using twisters inside a fire whirlwind will shoot out fire tornadoes as well. And you can do similar combos with ice and lightning too. Now, a key aspect of hunting is exhausting your foes by causing blood loss. This skill is Rake, which dashes towards your target and unleashes a deadly slash, opening up wounds on your enemies. Follow up with Disengage and watch them bleed out as they run towards you. On the health bar of monsters, you can see how much blood loss the enemy has experienced, and the Huntress has skills to take advantage of this. For example, using Blood Hunt will thrust forward and cause a bloody explosion. The more blood loss, the bigger the explosion. If you want to cause bigger bleeds, try out Rapid Assault. The final hit of this multi-hit combo will stick a spear into your enemy for a big bleed. Now, Explosive Spear and Rapid Assault both result in leaving spears behind, either in the ground or in enemies. But there are other skills that leave spears around too, like Storm Lance, that leaves an electrical spear that arcs towards enemies. But what can you do with all these spears? Detonate them, of course. Thunderous Leap will allow you to jump onto and explode any spears either in the ground or in your enemies. Now, as well as hunting animals, the Huntress also has the ability to work with them. While fighting any beast, you have the ability to tame it and use it as a companion. You can only have one companion at a time, but it will keep the mods that were on it. Try to find a rare beast with good mods to take full advantage of your ability to tame them. Now this is just the beginning of the Huntress. We've really tried to make the hybrid ranged and melee gameplay work for this class by having a huge amount of synergy between ranged and melee options. There are 22 new skills available for the Huntress. By endgame, you'll be slinging hundreds of insanely powerful spears, sending forth spirit animals and summoning the might of Solaris from the sky. But we still haven't talked about ascendancy classes yet. What can the Huntress ascend into? Well, the first ascension class you could choose is the Ritualist. The Ritualist has embraced the darker side of his merry traditions by harnessing the power of animal sacrifice and plague. The Corrupted Life Force skill causes all enemies around you to grow volatile blood boils on their skin. When those enemies are slain, the boils will burst, spreading corrupted blood to all enemies around them. The Ritualist also excels in taking advantage of magical trinkets. The Unfurled Finger skill allows you to equip an additional ring on a finger around your neck. Taking Mystic Attunement increases the bonuses of all the rings and amulets you have equipped. Now this is one of my favorites. As the Whispers Ask grants you a new skill, Ritual Sacrifice. Use the skill on the corpses of slain rare monsters to absorb the power in their blood, to give you one of their modifiers for a short time. Specialize further into Ritualistic Sacrifice with As the Whispers Demand, which allows you to perform that skill on yourself instead of a corpse. Cut your own hand, sacrificing some of your own blood to empower yourself. The Amazon Ascension is for those looking to hunt more than just beasts. Trained as an elite guard to the most important Asmeri elders, the Amazon will use more traditional fighting techniques mastered to perfection. The Predatory Instinct skill will cause you to reveal weaknesses in the defenses of rare and unique enemies, causing you to deal more damage. You can see those weak spots represented on their life bars. While using Elemental Infusion, any charges you consume will infuse your weapon with elemental power, causing any projectile attacks to explode on impact. The Critical Strike skill is as simple as it sounds. It takes your excess accuracy and gives it to you as critical strike chance. Additionally, you have skills like Mystic Harvest, which allows your elemental damage to leech life, and Asmeri Brew to be able to use either flask to restore both life and mana. So those are the two new ascendancies for the Huntress. But those are not the only ascendancies in Dawn of the Hunt. We've added a new ascension class for 3 of the other existing classes too.
No Druid, you lose.
First up, for our warriors out there, we have the Smith of Kitava. The warrior is a blacksmith in origin, taught by his father Renly. With this ascension, you can take your
do that in
smithing
the middle
skills
of
to
a
new
map.
heights by embracing power from the insatiable one himself, Kitava. Smiths of Kitava are master blacksmiths and have the ability to forge their weapon, quite literally. Using the Against the Anvil notable skill, you can enhance your weapon with fiery destruction before any battle. After doing so, your attacks will release explosions on hit for maximum devastation. You can also use the power of Kitava to summon an animated copy of your weapon to fight alongside you. A great blacksmith can do more than just forging their weapon though. Their armor can be enhanced too. Now you might think this ascendancy class tree looks a little abnormal, and you're right. There's a lot of notable skills all disconnected at the bottom there. By taking this point here, which is free to assign, your character is unable to equip body armors with mods of any kind. So your body armor must be normal. Sounds like a downside, right? Except now in true blacksmith fashion, you get to craft your own body armor by taking those disconnected notables with your points. If you want your body armor to grant life, take this notable. If you want resistances, take this one. There's so many choices. Think of it like you're crafting your own body armor, just in a more literal sense. Now, let's move on to those who prefer the reassuring feel of a crossbow in their hands, the Mercenary. Alongside the existing Ascension classes, the Gemling Legionnaire and the Witch Hunter, you can now play as the Tactician. The Tactician is a former Blackguard elite. Free from the duties of a Blackguard, he is able to use his training to decimate the monsters of Rayclast and earn a healthy income doing so. This training comes in the form of various skills like Suppressing Fire, which causes all projectiles to pin enemies. When combined with the Right Where We Want Them notable, your pin not only stops your enemies from moving, but stops them from performing actions too, similar to Freeze. With a soldier's training, the Tactician also works well cooperatively. Using the Whoever Pays Best notable, you can place multiple banners at once. The Watch How We Do It skill gives a portion of your weapon's damage to your allies as well. But if that isn't enough, you can also command your army of off-screen archers to unleash hell and carpet an entire area with arrows. Finally, Witch players will be able to join their legions by becoming undead themselves. In Dawn of the Hunt, we're introducing the Lich Ascension class. The Lich is a master of chaos and curses and could sacrifice her life to enhance her energy shield. The Crystalline Phylactery skill allows you to nominate a jewel in which to contain part of your soul, massively increasing its power. There's just one downside to splitting your soul this way though. If you have no energy shield, your mana costs will shoot up. The Necromantic Conduit skill causes you and allies in your presence to have unholy might, granting extra damage as chaos damage. Rupture the Soul makes enemies you curse explode with chaos damage when slain. Dominion over Flesh allows you to apply an additional curse. It's safe to say you'll be the true master of the occult by choosing the Lich class. So Dawn of the Hunt has the Huntress and 5 new Ascension classes, but it doesn't end there. Let's take a look at some of the new skills we've added. Now you may remember we've previously talked about the Raised Spectre skill. It's finally complete, and it will be made available in the upcoming expansion. It can be found in the occult skills on the skill gem crafting panel. Raised Spectre is a skill that allows you to trap the soul of almost any monster in the game, which you can then summon in the skill panel. Spectres cost spirit and will revive automatically if they die, but the spirit cost varies based on the power of the monster. You could summon an army of weaker monsters, or a few of the more powerful monsters. You can combine them with your existing skeleton minions, or summon exclusively spectres. It's all up to you and how you want to customize your army of the undead. Given that there are hundreds upon hundreds of monster variants in Path of Exile 2, it's safe to say you'll be experimenting with this one for a while. We look forward to seeing which monsters serve you best.
So we can
Now let's move on to our next skill. Since we've been talking about summoning undead so much, let's have a change of pace and summon something a little more alive. In Dawn of the Hunt, we're adding the Summon Rower skill. Summon your friendly rower to aid you in combat as a minion. You can also mount your rower in combat at any time, allowing you to move at full speed even while shooting arrows or throwing spears. Be wary though, if you take too much damage while riding your mount, you can be knocked off and get overwhelmed. It's worth keeping an eye on your stagger bar, as falling off the mount can mean almost certain death. On the topic of new ways to enhance your character, let's talk about support gems. Support gems are used to modify your skill gems in meaningful and interesting ways. Currently, we feel that a lot of builds have insufficient options here. To alleviate this, we're adding over 100 new support gems. Hema crystals will enable a new kind of bleed build, turning the damage over time you would have done into explosive Vile crystals. Alignment is a support gem for bow attacks, which can reward skilled players with good positional skills. Caltrops will allow you to litter the battlefield with hazards, slowing your foes as you fling spears through their ranks. But there's plenty more for every playstyle, such as Enormity, Unsteady Tempo, Profanity, Retaliate, Syzygy, yep, that's a real word, and many more. Now we've talked about a new class, new ascendancy classes, new skills, and new support gems, but let's not forget about the core of a true action RPG, the items. To start with, let's talk about uniques. We're adding over 100 new unique items. This time we've made sure to add uniques with a focus on mid and endgame tiers to make sure there are more exciting items to find for higher level characters. Let's look at some examples. Embrace your inner devil with Chernobog's Pillar. It grants you a large amount of fire damage based on your block chance. The Coming Calamity allows you to become a true master of the elements, granting you all 3 Elemental Herald skills without costing any spirit. At the same time, it penalizes enemy resistances. Wastegate is a belt useful for builds using a single resource like Blood Magic or Archmage builds. With this belt, you can use 2 life flasks or 2 mana flasks. It's up to you. Now we could go through these all day, but we'll leave most of them for you to discover. Suffice to say though, we want there to be way more cool things to find. Over time, our goal is to add a unique to every single base item type at a minimum, so that you can chance any base in the game. Now, given that we have the Huntress, we have a set of unique spears from early game all the way through the end game as well. One example is Scyther's Spear. which combines bleed and fire in a powerful way. It allows your ignites to be aggravated, dealing substantially more damage. We're also introducing a suite of unique bucklers with some interesting parry mechanics. Alkaizer Arc, for example, allows you to parry projectiles from any distance. And we're also adding our first unique charms. Bayra's Anguish will not only protect you from ignite, but will also emit a devastating fire nova whenever you do get ignited. In sum, there's just a ton of new uniques to find. We can't wait to see the weird and broken builds that come out of it. Now, we also want to talk about crafting options. In each major update during early access, we'll be continuing to add and improve the options here. We have various new crafting tools that have been added as rewards to many of the different types of new content that we're adding. But for now, I just want to mention the changes to runes. Runes add commonly available mods, but since they only have one tier, flat damage mods tend to get outclassed by in-game. So we've changed runes to have multiple tiers, allowing you to get higher tier mods than before. Our plan is to significantly expand the number of more specialized mods for crafting using socketables as we add new content over time. And the first new set of those comes from what we're talking about next. In Dawn of the Hunt, we're adding Asmarian Wisps, which can be found throughout both the campaign and the endgame. The Asmari spirit has made itself present in Rayclast, and it appears to be trying to warn, or maybe prepare us for the coming darkness. You will first encounter a manifestation of it in the Grellwood in Act 1, where you'll meet Delwyn, an Asmari hunter who is trying to find out what exactly is causing the spirit to behave this way. As you approach the wisp, it will flee, leading you past monsters. Any monsters it comes into contact with are infused by it, making them more powerful. Each spirit is associated with a specific revered animal within Asmari culture. This one is a wisp of the Great Bear, and grants enemies extra life and stun. The wisp moves faster the closer you are, and as you move away, they slow down to wait for you. But if you get too far away for too long, they'll dissipate and return to the woods. As you continue to chase the wisp, it will find and possess a rare or unique monster, granting it a new powerful ability. Because this was a wisp of the Great Bear, this monster now also has increased life and stun. But on top of that, it will periodically summon a large spectral bear that slams with wild fury. If you're able to defeat this foe, you will be rewarded. For each monster that was infused and killed along the way, the rewards will be increased. Each wisp has its own mechanics. The Wisp of the Winter Owl is a primal wisp that causes enemies to deal extra cold damage, gain energy shield, and release wind vortices on death. When infusing a monster, they will call down large tornadoes to protect their host. The Wisp of the Wild Cat is a vivid wisp that causes affected monsters to deal more critical strikes and become more evasive. When it infuses a monster, it will summon a barrage of feline spirits that will attempt to tear you limb from limb. If you're lucky, you may even find sacred wisps that can do some pretty crazy things to the monsters they influence. Like the Wisp of the Cunning Fox, which turns normal monsters into magics, magic monsters into rares, and rare monsters into actual bosses. Asmarian Wisps can drop a new set of socketable items that allow you to craft a wide range of interesting new mods onto your items. Each one may only be used on a specific item slot. As mentioned, the Asmarian Wisps can be encountered throughout the game, but there's also a new endgame map called the Asmari Ranges, a mountain village where the Asmari once lived, now overrun with corrupt monsters. This map always has multiple Asmarian Wisps in it, and familiar, yet not quite the same boss fight. Asmarian Wisps can also be further modified by the endgame Atlas tree as well, and by tablets. But I'm not going to be the one talking about those things. In order to cover all the new content in endgame, I'm going to hand things over to Mark.
Hi, I'm Mark Roberts, Game Director on Path of Exile 2. There's a ton to talk about with the endgame today, so let's dig right in. Path of Exile 2's early access began with a brand new endgame, and it was clear that it needed a lot of work. After absorbing your feedback, we're ready to make some epic changes. The first thing is, we just need a lot more content. In Dawn of the Hunt, we have made sure to focus on increasing the sheer number of interesting and different encounters you will randomly stumble into as you explore the endgame. And the second goal is to smoothen the progression through maps and reduce the amount of annoying busy work. To start with, let's talk about the new interesting stuff to find. Well, the most obvious thing to add are new maps. As well as the Asmari Ranges that Jonathan mentioned earlier, Dawn of the Hunt also contains 7 other new maps, all with their own custom encounters. Let's start with this one, The Feral Megaliths map starts off in the wild Ezomite forests. As you progress through the forest, you will find mysterious rune-carved stones that, when touched, surge with energy. After activating all the stones, you can find a grand henge, where all the energy is coalescing. You can then start an encounter. The area darkens, a storm moves in, and a concentration of energy summons a dangerous boss. You must fight and defeat the boss to get its rewards. Once you have defeated it, summon another. And another. And another. And another. You have 10 total waves of boss fights which get incrementally more difficult. If you manage to defeat them, you get full boss rewards, but also opportunities to get new runes. These can only be obtained from this map. The Fractured Lake contains a surreal waterscape with fractured mirror-like objects.
I'm so scared.
As you move around the map, the terrain itself elevates from below, creating the ground you walk on.
It's just the map,
In
guys.
this unique map, all the rare monsters are mirrored, so you're always fighting two of the same rare at the same time, which can prove quite difficult. If you manage to overcome that challenge and make it to the end of the map, you'll be presented with a broken mirror, a powerful altar-like object that contains an item within it. The item contained within is a new base type, either an amulet or a ring, that can be crafted to have additional prefixes or suffixes at the cost of the other. The last unique map we'll show today is one based around the essence mechanic. You enter a crystalline cavern, and you will find a powerful map boss imprisoned in the center. It is surrounded by many rare monsters, also imprisoned in essences. By freeing and defeating the rare monsters, the essence they held will be upgraded to a greater essence and be added to the imprisoned map boss. How brave are you? How many essences will you add to the boss? Overdo it, and you might lose everything. Underdo it, and you might regret it. It's your choice. Speaking of essences, alongside visual improvements, you're now able to apply Varlorbs to corrupt the essences with a range of unpredictable outcomes. It could increase the number of essences, re-roll all the essences to the same type, or even upgrade the essences to greater essences. What if they're already greater essences? Well, it can upgrade those too. We have 4 new corrupted essences: Essence of Hysteria, Delirium, Horror, and Insanity. Each corrupted essence has its own interesting combat mechanics. For example, the Essence of Insanity causes you to question even your own mind, as monsters split into shadowy clones, and you must locate the real one before a devastating icy explosion freezes everything around it. Each of these has their own crafting outcomes. The Essence of Insanity can be applied to a belt. It adds a mod that will ensure the next Varlorb used on the belt will guarantee adding 2 enchantments. It's worth noting all the essences in the unique map can also be corrupted too, if you're willing to risk it. It's worth noting we have also added 10 extra Atlas passive points you can earn by completing 5 different unique maps. Now, new maps are just the beginning. We had a goal where we wanted to make sure you were constantly finding exciting new content, and that it could be lurking around any corner. So, we have added a bunch of new things that you could stumble into in any map you run. On your travels, you will sometimes encounter rogue exiles. Others like you who have been exiled and are openly hostile. Some are malicious, some are mad, while others are simply fiends for loot. They will challenge you, a fight to the death. They use the same skills available to players, and even the same items. They aren't just dressed up in those items, they're actually using them. It's going to feel like a true player versus player situation. Of course, if you are able to slay these exiles, those items will all drop on the ground. So if you encounter an exile using a powerful or valuable unique item, which you can see displayed under their life bar, you want to be damn sure you kill them. Because if they kill you and your party, they'll portal out, taking their items with them. Every fight will feel completely different depending on the items they come equipped with. These exiles are much smarter than your regular monster. They have capabilities to dodge roll, avoid your abilities with smart pathfinding, smart targeting, and much more action-packed gameplay. Fortunately, they're like you and they're not super durable. Unless, of course, they're wearing uniques like Calm's Heart. in which case expect a longer battle. There are 12 different rogue exiles you can find, each with their own skills and personalities. Some may insult you, while others may admire your honor.
They're map bosses now that are just gonna have
Another
RNG
encounter
spawning
you
your
might
map and kill
stumble
you.
onto in Dawn of the Hunt are one of 4 new unique strongboxes.
You have no
Strongboxes
control,
are
they're just
chests
gonna
with
fuck you.
modifiers. When you try to open them, they activate traps and spawn waves of monsters that you must defeat to access the loot. Let's take a look at 2 of the new unique boxes that are harder to find and behave just a little bit differently. The Ogham's Legacy Strongbox has a corpse splayed out in front of the rune-carved stone. Upon interacting with the stone, you activate Forbidden Ezomite magic, which revives the monster as a powerful rare. The Strongbox comes with a modifier which determines how many times it will revive that rare. Each time you defeat the monstrosity, the Strongbox revives it again, adding an extra modifier to the monster. With each resurrection, it becomes more difficult, but also more rewarding. This Strongbox is infused with thaumaturgy from ancient Vaal technology. Eshel's Torment has a powerful artifact inside, and is guarded by Chaos itself. Defeating the monsters will grant you a unique item, with a specific corrupted outcome. You'll have to find the other 2 for yourself to see what they do. Now, let's talk about the introduction to the endgame. Upon starting the endgame, Doriani tasks you with cleansing corruption to help restore the land. However, in practice, the quest objective just sent you on a grind to clear 15 maps. We wanted to make the quest to unlock your Atlas passives much more interesting. Now, Doriani is tasking you with a more specific objective. On the Atlas, you will find areas of corruption caused by the beast. In the center of each one, you will find a corrupted nexus, the source of the affliction. In the areas leading up to the nexus, you will notice that corruption spills out from slain enemies and amalgamates into powerful monsters. Corrupted maps existed on the Atlas before, but we've done significant work on improving these monsters. We've also done a full pass on the modifiers on these maps to make them more interesting and more rewarding. Once you reach the nexus, you will have a new task: cleanse the source of corruption. When you defeat the last rare in those maps, they will spawn one of 3 terrifying bosses, amalgamations of corruption itself. After defeating that boss, Doriani will come and cleanse the corruption for good. As the remains of the boss are purged of corruption, it coalesces into raw crystallized power, which you can use to gain points for your Atlas passive skill tree, the upgrade system that allows you to add and enhance content in your maps. We didn't stop there though. When you complete a corrupted nexus, all of the remaining surrounding corrupted maps will become cleansed maps. Cleansed maps also have new monsters, a new boss, and their own set of modifiers and rewards, including finding fracturing orbs by slaying cleansed enemies. These orbs can be used in crafting on a rare item to cause one of its modifiers to become fractured. A fractured modifier is one that cannot be modified by any means. You are able to freely modify the item, ensuring the fractured modifier will never change. If you get the right item with the right mod, it can prove to be a very powerful crafting base indeed.
I mean, that one's shit. It's minions.
You must now
I don't know what to
choose.
tell you. Delete
Do
that.
you
failed.
complete all the corrupted maps and then the Nexus? Or maybe you beeline to the Nexus, complete it, and do all the remaining maps cleansed. Both have rewards to entice you and challenges to assess. Now, let's have a talk about towers. One thing we've had a lot of feedback on is the busy work around running towers and managing your tablets. The first change we've made here is that we have reduced the number of towers drastically, so there are now 1/3 as many as before, but we've made them much more powerful. To start with, tablets now inherently add twice as many mechanics, but that's not all. Running higher tier maps and towers now increases the number of mechanics applied by tablets. By tier 15, the bonus is double, allowing a single tablet to now add 4 times as many mechanics as before. So, we're running far fewer towers, dealing with fewer tablets, and affecting even more maps than before. But because there are fewer towers overlapping with each other, you won't get as many opportunities to stack different tablets. In order to solve this, we've made it so that each tower can consume up to 3 tablets at once. You always get one slot on completing the tower, but if you can complete a tower with more mods on the waystone, you can unlock a second or third slot. Overall, this allows for even more juicing from towers, while drastically reducing the amount of busy work you have to do. On top of that, towers are much more interesting maps because they can now spawn with all mechanics, including bosses. Each tower map has a new boss.
Name?
Let's take a look at a couple here. The boss fight of the Alpine Ridge map has two powerful witches contesting for territory. One witch has an affinity for ice, the other fire.
What is this Goku
Who will
shit?
win? Hopefully neither. The boss of the Sinking Spire map is a remnant of the Val that has been charged with lightning. It uses a full suite of lightning abilities. But be careful, if any of them hit the surrounding constructs, they will power up. Another thing that we've seen a lot of feedback about is sustaining waystones. As we looked into it, we realized that the people who couldn't sustain waystones were dying a lot. A lot more than we had expected.
What?
And that made us realize something. During the campaign, the expectation is that you can die multiple times in order to learn how to overcome challenges. You are able to learn how the monsters behave, adapt to their skills, and eventually overcome them. But as soon as you get to the endgame, you are effectively no longer allowed to die if you want to sustain waystones. By the time you are getting towards the end of endgame, we want you to have to be careful not to die. But it certainly shouldn't be that we have such a sudden shift as you run your first maps. The first change we're making is you can now respawn and return to a map if you die. Continuing from where you left off. When you start the endgame, you get up to 6 total attempts per map.
But now the monsters are
As you
6
add
times
more
harder.
modifiers to a waystone, the number of respawns goes down. This means that as you get to the point that you're running every waystone as a rare, you will have to
it's
be
still
more
the same.
careful.
It doesn't even matter. Tier 6 maps, 1 portal?
In parties, everyone gets to respawn that number of times.
That's not even changed. They just fucking debated all the
still think it's
idiots.
important that
They
you
literally
kill a
just
boss in
debated
one
all the goobers.
In order to
They were
allow
all
this
so
to
excited
happen, we've
hearing
made a
that,
change
and then
so
they
that
just got
once you
fucked.
start the boss fight, it changes over
They
to the
actually
same
just got
respawning
fucked.
system we use for pinnacle bosses. This means that the map owner can choose to respawn everyone at the same time.
You're blue boy.
Another complaint we've seen a lot of is players not wanting to do the pinnacle content because of the experience penalty from dying. A change we've made here is that all pinnacle content now no longer grants experience, but also no longer removes experience on death either. Dawn of the Hunt also brings the first batch of Twilight Order reliquary keys from the early access supporter packs.
What?
These keys contain items selected by our supporters. They can contain any unique item found in Path of Exile 2. If the selected item is a pinnacle boss drop, then only special keys dropped by this content will be able to provide these items. For example, Hand of Wisdom in action can only come from a key dropped
Show us
by
the new
Zesht.
role. Identify it.
We're also making a change that allows pinnacle
Identify it,
boss uniques
coward.
to drop at any difficulty. Rarer uniques will be rarer at lower difficulties, but still possible to find. This applies to the drop chances for the reliquary keys from this content as well. We spoke about towers and tablets earlier, but we have also added a suite of unique tablets. Each of these adds crazy interactions to the maps influenced by it. For example, this unique tablet allows you to run any map in a tower's radius without requiring connections, which can be quite useful for jumping gaps and traveling around your atlas.
Name?
And this tablet causes all runic monsters spawned during expedition encounters to be duplicated, and weakens all expedition monsters that emerge from the ground. The Atlas tree has also been expanded, and you can find many of the new mechanics there, and improvements to existing ones too. Now through this livestream we have mentioned quite a few new crafting options that we've added. New runes, corrupted essences, fractured mods, and jewelry crafting bases. But we did have just one more crafting system to talk about. Recombination.
No.
Expedition was the only in-game mechanic that was lacking a crafting system,
This
so
is the
that
worst.
needed to
It's
change.
over.
Recombination is a mechanic that might be familiar to some players. It allows you to merge two items together, hoping to get the best elements of each on a single new item. This new crafting bench will be unlocked as you complete your first expedition, and requires artifacts found during expeditions to fuel it. The rarer the mods on the item you are combining, the more expensive the cost. That wraps up all the major in-game changes we're talking about today. With all the system changes and new content, we can't wait to get in there, start blasting maps, and obliterating monsters. There is one more thing we wanted to clarify before we move on, which is that all the content we've talked about today will be made available in the existing early access leagues, so you can play your existing characters. However, there will be new leagues made for those who wish to start in a fresh economy. It is recommended to start over and get the full new experience in the Dawn of the Hunt leagues. For all our existing early access players, we're really looking forward to joining you playing in this new update. For those who don't already have access and are interested in playing Path of Exile 2, Dawn of the Hunt, you are able to at any time purchase an early access supporter pack at www.pathofexile2.com. Additionally, the Paladin and Penance supporter packs are now available to purchase in Path of Exile 2 and contain 6 microtransactions each and the full pack's face value in points.
I know where it
All
is.
the microtransactions contained within these packs are purely cosmetic and do not affect your character's power or progression in any way. Thank you so much for your ongoing support. We're just about to start the Q&A with Ziggy D. With release at the end of next week, our community team will be posting crucial information you'll need for the release. Keep an eye on the news. On release weekend, we expect to launch the new mystery box and many new microtransactions, including Path of Exile 2's first alternate skill effects. Thanks for joining us today and checking out our latest developments. We're looking forward to playing the Huntress, trying new builds, and exploring the new endgame next week. We'll begin the Q&A shortly, so please get your questions ready.
Good morning, Exiles, and welcome to the Q&A portion of today after a very exciting reveal
What?
with lots in it, exceeding my expectations, particularly in crafting. But on that note, we're joined here by Jonathan and Mark to talk about all that we've seen today and more in the future of Path of Exile 2. And you had an update about the recombination.
Yes, that's
first,
right.
so-
That's right. Yeah. So we actually last night
What?
had a bit of a design session and realized that we weren't actually fully happy with the way the recombination worked. So we actually made quite a big change to it, which wasn't reflected in that video, obviously. Which is basically that
It's actually that
we sort of
quiet.
wanted to give a bit more control to the
Meat
player
creature!
over how recombination works. And we also kind of weren't really happy about the fact that recombinators is something that kind of matters a lot for really, really ultra endgame players. But it wasn't something that was really mattering a lot for the people who effectively got access to the feature at the start. So we've actually changed it now so that the way it works is that you pick which mods you want on the each item from each item, and then it gives you a percentage chance of success.
How quiet
basically.
is he on a scale of
So if
1 to
you pick just,
10?
one from one and one from the other, then the chance is much higher. But if you pick if you pick 6 mods, it'll become practically impossible. So effectively, the more you're wanting to design the item, the less of a chance of actually having success. So that means that if you just want to get a mod, if you want to get an item with okay, these 2 mods that I found off the ground, that's relatively easy. If you want to get an item which has all of them, then very hard. So we think that's a much better design because it means you can kind of use the recombinators
so
actually become
quiet.
something that you can use even from the first point you get them, but there's still this kind of end game, for perfect stuff, you might still be able to do it with more. It is kind of balanced though, so that if you pick literally all 6, then it's going to be incredibly low to the point of don't even try that. But 4 mods might be a good thing to sort of be striving for, that kind of thing, and then exalt the other 2, that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's kind of the new design of that. So hopefully that'll be in by the time 02 comes out. We've kind of got a plan for doing that. I think it's a much better design than what we had before for recombinators.
If it's not there for 020, it'll be
Yeah,
as
very
soon as
soon.
it can afterwards.
Very soon,
But yeah, you know, spur of the moment, night before the live stream design sessions,
Yeah.
but
Been a few of those.
increased player agency and visibility into
Meat
the
creature!
success result is
They
just a
killed
win.
Chris Wilson.
And honestly, took way too long to, you know, get to the point of us actually going, "Oh, this is just straight up better to have observability into that and the freedom of choice." So,
Sure.
Yeah, that's the thing. Recombination definitely felt like something that was both
Meat
really high end in terms
creature!
of the crafting that it was intended for, but also just even understanding it. This seems much more intuitive because
Yes. You just pick what you
selecting
want.
the mods you want.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
So it does sound like it's a little bit of a nerf for the very high end of crafting, though. Like,
It might end up being, but I'm not like it sort of depends on how the numbers come out. Like because we only just designed this, we need to still
Meat
work out
creature!
like exactly how the numbers end up
Login.
looking. But
Meat
I mean,
creature!
look, we have to make sure. Obviously,
Warzone is
whenever we're
better.
designing any crafting system, we have to be really sure that we're not like screwing over finding stuff on the ground. So you know, you have to sort of have that balance, and that's so that kind of informs everything we do with crafting usually.
one difference here, though, of course, is if the success chance fails, both
item's just
both
deleted,
items
yeah.
are destroyed as opposed to always keeping one.
Yeah.
So
okay.
So it's basically
Whether or not
percent
it's
chance for success, and if it fails, item's gone. So
What,
yeah.
roughly, what do you think you
Okay.
try to pitch it? Just
That's-
choosing 2 mods out. Like,
It
the
depends
thing.
on what mods you're selecting, but I'm
Wow.
kind of thinking kind of like 35%-ish kind of thing for like 2 normal mods, that kind of thing.
both
Like
to
for them
go
both,
over?
yeah, for them both. For if you pick 2,
Yeah.
and then but we'll
it
see.
kind of depends. Again,
It kind of depends. We'll see how we
higher,
have to do
higher
some
tier
math.
mods
I
are
mean, that's
rare,
gonna
yeah,
piss so many
exactly.
people
So that-
off.
And also, the other thing is it's going to now have a fixed cost. So
That
it's
shit's
not
gonna make people rage quit the
Yeah,
game.
you know,
And the idea is
Dollar
like
based on
and the idea is like doing a single expedition should be enough to do a recombination. So you're going to be doing them like relatively often as you're doing expeditions.
so is the part of Expedition where you get to craft with the NPCs still a thing then? Now that you're adding this?
Yeah, I mean you've still got that whole mechanic, and like so it's effectively it's competing for the artifacts.
Yeah.
Between recombination versus buying things from that other way.
So is there some buffs intended for that then to make it more competitive?
not
with-
yet. It definitely needs some love in the future, but not at this time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems like the systems can kind of go hand in hand, where one is giving you items that you can then potentially recombinate.
That is also true. You can use the ingredients of one in the other, or the outcome of one as an ingredient in another. Yeah.
Cool. We'll talk more about crafting a little bit later on for sure, because there was a lot announced there, which I'm quite excited about. Definitely exceeded my predictions for what you'd be adding in terms of crafting. But firstly, though, just a quick clarification on the league. So there's not going to be a wipe for the new players joining us. If you were playing on a character, you can still keep playing on a character. But a lot of long-term Path of Exile players know the importance of playing on a fresh start, and that's also really important for you guys as well.
For sure, yeah. I mean, basically, if we don't have like any character that's come from before, you're just not gonna because the balance is so different and because so many things have changed. There's like no point in even listening to feedback for someone who's playing in the old league. Like it really has to be that you're doing the fresh start, and we're sort of seeing how things go in the new economy. So like we were really sort of it was kind of an interesting decision about whether or not we should make it so that all the content is exclusive, or rather like what amount of content would be exclusive to the league versus not. And the issue that we had is that so I mean like. A league means something in Path of Exile. In order for something to rise to the level of a league, it needs like a certain amount of features. And the original thing we were thinking about doing that way would be the Asmeri and Wisps, but there wasn't quite like the kind of like meta mechanics and stuff with that. So like we didn't quite rise to the level of feeling like it deserved to be a challenge league. And at the same time, we've also got a lot of new players playing Path of Exile 2 who never played Path of Exile before. So we were a little bit we kind of were deciding like, okay, should we make them exclusive or not? We sort of decided, you know what, for this one we're not going to. And then what we'll probably try and do is for the next
Actually, no druid.
league that we do, we'll actually make it a proper challenge league with like its own exclusive mechanic and so on. But yeah, it's a little bit funny because like in early access is a bit of a different situation with different and so. Yeah, we'll sort of see how this goes anyway. But certainly I would encourage everyone just like start again on a new character. I think you'll have a much better time because obviously if there's structural changes to the passive tree. It's like if you log in with your old character, you're going to have like your tree's going to get reset. You have to do stuff. There's things like that are going to happen that mean that and also just balance changes, right? Like huge numbers of them. So you're going to have a better time playing from the start.
That's it. And speaking of the Huntress then, so we saw initial Huntress quite some time ago now and had some hands-on time with it and things, but I certainly, having played that before and played it now recently, the Huntress has changed quite a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
So what was the how hard was it to get it ready for release? What was kind of the key there?
I mean, it's funny because class design is one of those things where every time you add something, it can make you reevaluate everything else, which is why it's so hard to predict
Yes.
like how long a class will take. So like it changed a lot since the last time we had like we were showing Huntress. And honestly, like, you know, it's like while there are some skills that you will still see, like it just plays completely different. And I mean, whenever we're looking at like how we're going to design something like this, it really comes down to like what is it's the special about the character class? Like how can we double down on that to make sure it feels different? So with the Huntress, you've obviously got spears as a base type. The key difference between a spear and any other weapon type is that you can both use them at melee and you can also use them at range. You know, you can throw them. And so because of that, you know, we really were just really trying to incentivize everything possible so that you use both of those things. And, you know, action RPG players, they, you know, generally speaking, you know, the balance can often be such that you only really want to do one thing and do that one thing well. So trying to incentivize the kind of ranged and melee is, you know, quite a thing. And I mean, the way we do it effectively is try to make sure that like there are combo chains where, you know, a ranged thing can combo with something that's melee and a melee thing can combo with something that's ranged, and then also give you good abilities to move between the two states. And so that kind of means that you end up with a very like agile character, like you're constantly moving like backwards and forwards and kind of moving around. And I would say that like given that it's the Dex character, that it's good that it feels that way, that it feels the most agile of all of the melee character classes. So you know, that's been a really good one. But you know, I mean, look, there are, in terms of changes, I mean, look, there are just changes all the time. Like the frenzy charge thing was like relatively late in development. Like there's like quite a lot of things going on that just meant that, you know, the field kept on evolving. And another big one, of course, was parry, which I honestly was very skeptical of working. And Mark, Mark was the one who saved it. Honestly, like I was like, you know what? There was like 3 times I think where I was like, you know what? I don't think it's gonna work. And then you were like, okay, I think you know we're gonna save this.
I was like, give me a week.
Yeah, exactly. And it works completely differently for most games, because in most games, obviously, with parrying, the way that works is that, you know, you have to time like to push the block button at exactly the right time, but that's just something that just wouldn't work in our combat system, because you know, you're often packs of monsters. It's just like you don't really have the ability to read combat in that way in our game, and at the same time we need to make something where there's going to be like, you know, if a single monster in a pack hits you, you need to be able to respond to that with something that's going to you know, you need to be able to respond in a way where you don't just then immediately get hit by a bunch of other stuff.
Yes.
So having it so that the parry, like it always parries, but it's then taking advantage of what the parry does to the monster by following up with something that's going to give you, like, you know, an explosion or something like that to kind of deal with the pack. That's something that sort of allows that counter gameplay to work in our game. So you've kind of got 2 primary parry follow-ups. You've got the frenzy charge one, which dashes back, which means that, you know, you don't have to worry about the monsters hitting you. And then you've also got the one that there's another one which I don't believe we showed there, which you know, called Fangs of Frost, which does a counter where you attack with ice, which freezes the pack. So it's another way to kind of, so in both cases you've kind of got something that's kind of dealing with the fact that you've got all these monsters around you. And that was kind of the biggest challenge I think that we had with that mechanic.
Yeah, I'll also make note of, there was a support gem I found that you can attach to any attack that allows you to follow up parry to generate a frenzy charge too. So it doesn't even have to be the backflip.
Yeah,
You
in
can
that case. Yeah, I mean, there's other,
create your own parry.
Yep, and then of course there's always Sniper's Mark, you know, and there's like there's a skill that does give you a guaranteed crit, so that's a potential option as well. Like you've got a few different ways to generate them.
Because parry guarantees a light stun.
Yeah.
You always get that small window to actually engage or do a thing before before you're under danger again.
And I'll tell you this, like, I am one of those players who never parry, right? In any game ever, because I can never do it. It's always just so frustrating. So I was very skeptical of that, but it feels really good. You've both managed to make it something that's easy to do, because you can just hold the button down and parry at any time. There's no skill involved in that. But at the same time, you've incentivized making it so that you do want to still try and time it as best you can personally. By, well, how have you done that? How have you made it so that, like, you actually still want to kind of play it skillfully.
Well, I mean, ultimately, anytime you're holding down the parry button is when you're not attacking, right? So you still
Exactly.
want to kind of minimize the window, but at the same time, like the timing is just not like
Do you think the big booty
not as bad. But
Latina
the
guy
nice
is
thing
in
as well is
chat?
that like once you do successfully parry, it's very obvious. You get the sound, you get the token on the
chunky.
monster. It's very
There's no
chunky.
way.
Yeah.
So it means it's very obvious when you're supposed to counterattack. So yeah, I'm very happy with that. I think that it came out really well. And honestly, one of the funny things about it is that it immediately made me realize like how bad shields are in comparison, which is why we're also trying to ninja in a change to how shields work at the last minute, which we'll see if it makes it into 020. I was playing around with it last night.
This was 8 p.m. last
yeah,
night.
Yeah, 8
at
p.m. last
Jonathan's.
night, exactly.
Yeah,
I was
messing with this.
Yeah, messing around with it. And I won't talk too
Did
much
he
about
say
how that's
that
going to work.
Recombinator
effectively,
was
we want to
like
make sure
30% chance to
shields
succeed
better as well,
with
kind of
just
build something into those to make them
2
to make them
mods?
more
So what's the chance to
So,
succeed
yeah,
with
that's the plan
6
there. We'll see if it
mods?
makes it for 0
Yeah, following that kind of similar design space idea of being able to do a bit more with it.
Yeah,
And then that
100%.
feed into other skills and things like that as well. So
And if
it's a
it
really
fails,
nice
the
way of-
both items are destroyed.
So we talked about Huntress being very, very combo heavy, and she has the deepest combo chains out of anyone so far, even exceeding like things you can do with Monk. You got 3-4 different skills deep of things you can start to synergize together. So how do you balance? How do you make that fun? Firstly, like rather than
I mean,
like,
it's going to be how a lot of
Well,
good
I mean,
items
you
are
just- I
made,
guess
but
there's a
that's
few
going to be
things.
how a
One
lot
them
of
is it just has to be
items
very
are
readable and
destroyed.
understandable when, like what you can do and when you can do it. And I think the other thing that's really to our advantage here is reusing skills in multiple ways, so you can make a deeper combo chain without requiring you to be using as many skills in order to do it. So the way that Whirling Slash and Tornadoes interact with ground effects and kind of like all that stuff
Yeah, I
sort of
think it
means
still
that
pick up 100
you're
bases.
using Whirling
I
Slash
think
multiple
the game
times as
sounds
part
like
of the
it still
same
pick up
combo
every
chain.
base.
And that's an idea I think that I'd like to try and explore more, because I think that it is a cool way to kind of extend the combo chain. Yeah, as I said, without sort of getting too many things involved, and makes it a lot cooler. So yeah, I'll think a bit more about how we can apply that to other classes and other skills. But yeah, it's worked out really well here.
Yeah, it's a bit of like a loose create your own combo system in a way. Like obviously there's intended
Actually, no
combos, but
druid.
because it's
You're
interacting
fucked.
with something that's fundamental like ground effects, you're able to combo with anything that creates a ground effect. And there's a lot of different ways you can do that. Like I added shocked ground to the backflip skill, or
Right.
I got a companion pet that
Nice.
had a shocked ground aura.
Nice.
As like that was just
Yeah.
there and that was available all the time.
I mean, it's funny as well because it also works on just enemy ground effects, and so sometimes
Yes.
you can just get a damage boost because the rare just happened to be dropping ground fire or something. So that's kind of fun. Yeah. But it's been it's just a lot of fun to play. The first time I ran into that was actually in the graveyard where there's these like chests that like pop open with fire, and like I was using tornadoes, and then one of them just randomly turned into a fire tornado, and I'm like, oh, what happened there? Oh, yeah, sweet. It was just like a really cool moment where it just sort of interacted with the environment, which was really fun.
It always feels like you're getting a little bit of something extra for free when you're taking advantage of the enemy effects or a boss fight that just has burning ground everywhere. It's like sweet. So how do you go about balancing though when you have a class that has deep
They haven't
combos
talked
and
about
kind
a
of
single
somewhat
balance
requires you to
change.
do a bit
I
more
wonder if that's intentional.
versus a class or a skill or a
And we don't
build
get
that
patch notes
is
still for a while.
just bonk.
Like days.
I mean, you have to ultimately make the combos matter, right? And I think actually that's one of those things that we're trying to really focus on with the balance changes we're doing in Dawn of the Hunt more generally, is making sure that even like I think it's the case where some of the combo gameplay kind of degenerates a little bit by end game in a way that like I want to make sure it still feels rewarded. And so we were sort of doing various checks, recently about like as a random example, right? Like so on the mercenary, we found that doing but when you get to end game, doing armor break, what's it called? The armor piercing that causes armor break, followed with high velocity rounds, is just worse than just using high velocity rounds. And that's like really bad, right? Like we have to make sure that we're improving that stuff. So it's like sometimes you just get these things where like the balance by end game kind of degenerates in a way that that doesn't support the combo anymore. And so we have to make sure that when we're looking at buffing things, that we're like making sure that when we're doing it, it's to support the fact that using more things is actually a good thing. We're really trying to make sure that we're bringing some of that, improving some of that stuff as well as we're doing.
Not only was he truly
So do you have like a
ancient, he was
baseline
truly
there of where like the
evil.
really simplest build should be, the build that just bonks? Like
I mean, you mean in terms of damage or in terms of like what it does? I mean, we always want
I
you
guess
be
the players,
able to build that way. But
players have to do a combo.
I mean,
like, for
no,
people who don't want
ultimately
to.
you never have to, right? But it
Yeah.
sort of what it means is that you are sacrificing something. And look, the ideal situation is that like you don't feel like you have to do combos. You feel like you want to do combos,
Yes.
right? Like, because you feel rewarded for them. It's like should
That's
feel
it.
like a fun, like, oh, I can add this. Like it's the feeling you should be getting.
Yeah. I think the Huntress is doing that very well. It must have been like extremely hard because I don't think I've ever seen this like ranged melee combo done well before.
Right. Well, I mean, it does require a lot of discipline, and it means that a lot of skills like end up on the cutting room floor because you try them out and then you realize, well, if this is in the game, then that's the only thing I'm ever going to do. So you got to be really careful about that stuff. For
Certainly playing the Huntress now makes me go back and look at the other classes and be like, we need to up that the level there, and we missed the mark a little bit now because this is better. And who's to say the next class won't even be better and make us question even this? But you know,
but that's the way it is with class design.
That's what he says when we like literally when you make a new class, you question everything. He's not understating the level of questioning everything.
Yeah, do you see like going back to the monk at some point and looking for more like opportunities to link skills together with?
I mean, we haven't got to the full skill set for any class yet already, and we need to add more pieces for a lot.
I think there's at least 4 skills that were designed and then aren't in the monk currently.
Range are the same. There was extra poison skills. It was intended to be more chaos dots. There's all kinds of stuff. We have to obviously at some point fill all of that in. Hard to say when, but. We're going to try and incrementally get it, like much like how Ray Spectre and I mean the mount works with the Huntress, but we were like, let's give something for the Ranger this time. Let's give something for the Summoners out there this time, and so we're just going to keep filling in those gaps over time.
And it feels like you're getting better at class and skill design as you go too. So I imagine the last class you're going to release is going to be like amazing. You'll look back at the first ones and be like, ooh.
Possibly.
Well, that is the worry. But whatever.
But look, that just means we've got another round of going through everything and improving stuff again, right? So
and that will never end.
That's it. So with the parry came the kind of looking at the player getting stunned, in particular player heavy stun. So it's always hard to tell players like, hey, we're going to do something to you and it's going to be a bad thing. You're not going to like this.
Well, the funny thing,
let's talk about why.
there's a few things like that actually, because so I mean, for a start, like we needed the downside of parry to be, like that. Yeah, you get stunned out of it. But then when we're looking at how long, like we're like, okay, right now, even and it's true with shield block as well. By the way, it's like if you get stunned out of that, the amount of time that you get stunned out for is actually not even enough time for most bosses to do a follow-up attack on you. And it's like, well, where's the downside if it doesn't even have enough time? So we did have to extend that out a little bit, and it makes you a little bit more careful. But just to warn people, right, there's a few other things, like we lowered, what's it called, I can't remember the name of that thing now, the thing that makes you more easy to be elemental statuses apply to you. Ailment threshold. That's right, ailment threshold. Yeah. So we lowered ailment threshold to actually make it so the player has those mechanics happen more to them, right? Because like right now through campaign, like you barely get frozen or burning or shocked, really, to be honest. Yeah. So there's stuff like that we've had to do to kind of make sure that that because if you don't have that stuff actually happen to you, then there's no point in mitigating it. And it's like things like charms were like not very useful because those mechanics weren't happening to you. There's stuff like that, right? The downsides do actually matter in order to make it so that that there's other things you can do to sort of bypass those downsides. So that's kind of one of those things that we just have to make sure is there.
I did always find it a little bit strange that like I was able to count the number of times I was frozen in the campaign on one finger.
For sure. For sure. But
it's always by those vile ghosts.
Yes.
So expect a little bit more, a little bit more danger from the stun. I definitely died a couple times to getting heavy stun.
Yeah, it can happen.
So that's mostly occurring if you're like doing bad blocking or parrying. But can it also occur just from like taking a really big hit or something?
Nope. At least we've discussed that. We've gone through a whole bunch of different should certain boss abilities heavy stun you, and if you spec into enough stun threshold, it like demotes it to a light stun, and if that, there's all kinds of multi-hour discussions we've had, and we haven't really come to anything conclusive there. But it's only from mount, raise shield, and parry, and of which, at least for all of them, you can see your stagger bar filling up. It's worth noting things like evasion apply to. So when you're parrying, we turn off your evasion from taking damage because the block does, right? And otherwise you'd be like, I'm going to parry it. Oh, I evaded it. It didn't parry. Yeah. But you can evade the stagger build up. So you don't take the damage anyway, just before anyone misunderstands that.
The evasion still works.
Yeah.
So high evasion will mean you can parry for longer. There's a bunch of parry stuff on the tree, including damage affecting the debuff, the duration of the debuff, so you get to benefit for it longer. Reducing stagger is all over the place for both mount and so in the dex section of the tree. So yeah, you can mitigate. I mean, my expectation is probably you'll get some in-game builds that are just like, I can parry forever, and There's no real consequence. So
And
not
it-
every skill can be parried, of course.
Yeah, it otherwise follows the slam rules. If it's a slam from above or below, you can't parry it. Much to your frustration for some
Yes,
things.
I mean there are a few things where I've got disagreements about what looks like it's parryable, but
My hopeful there was when it's contentious, people would bring it up and would change it, right?
Sure, sure.
So like, if it's on the line, it's meant to be blockable. Like, if it isn't clear, and there was no way with hundreds of monsters and many dozens of bosses that we weren't going to miss some things. So
So you mentioned this a little bit earlier, but action RPGs kind of naturally pull you towards one damage type, one skill, one specific thing, and optimizing as much as possible, because otherwise you're just making a bad build a lot of the time. But I notice Huntress has a bit of everything. She's got bleed, she's got all the elements, she's got physical. The only thing she doesn't have is like chaos, but there's kind of poison on the tree right there. So how do you like promote this, like all of this different stuff together? Are you supposed to only kind of be relegated to using 2 or 3 skills, or are these supposed to come together, and how do you manage that?
well, there's a few things. So one of them is that we provide a lot of combos with the expectation that you'll probably be focusing around like a few specific things rather than necessarily using the whole tree. So like there's that. The other thing as well is just making sure that in the passive tree there's sort of options that go across both. So the Huntress's passive tree has quite a lot of things like extra melee damage if you've done a ranged attack recently, and then it's got things like bonuses against blinded enemies because while you're in a whirling slash there's so it's sort of stuff like that where we're trying to carefully think like, well, how can we come up with something that's interesting and buffs everything that you might want to be doing, that kind of synergizes with the stuff that that Huntress can do. But it is honestly hard because like many categories of things only matter for one thing, part of a combo. So it's just like trying to come up with categories that can somehow span all of them in different ways. And ideally we can achieve that, but yeah, it is pretty hard.
generally, you're going to become more niche or more selective because, again, even mixing elemental and bleed is just probably often going to result
You
in something
probably wouldn't do
suboptimal.
both elemental and bleed. You'd probably choose one or the other. But that's why we kind of try to make sure that, like, so you've got sort of linkages between them, though, right? Because it's like, for example, the Thunderous Leap detonates the spears that you do from the bleed thing. So it's like kind of like the idea there is to like it changes how that skill then has a use in the combo with the other one. So even if that skill itself isn't doing a lot of damage, it's triggering something that's taking advantage of all the damage bonuses you got for the for your bleed stuff. So that's kind of like the idea, is just to link all that stuff in a bit so that you can use the non like directly synergistic things in a kind of more synergistic way.
Yeah, that's if you didn't see that from the earlier trailer, it's you spear them with a bunch of spears and then jump on them and explodes them for bleed. Amazing. So, but yeah, that's using an elemental skill like in another way as a detonator. And even more, you've got weapon swaps as well.
Yeah, of course. I mean, there's all those systems we already added about all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So I mean, like, what will be interesting is whether or not we miss something cross-class, right? That's always a concern. Is someone will come up with some way to abuse something, between something that's going on in the spear skills with some other class that we failed to consider.
Yeah, I mean, so that's it. When we look at a new class, we typically like call it like, Huntress is spears, but kind of not really. It's a signature weapon, but
absolutely
nothing in the ascendancies prescribes spears.
Exactly. So effectively, we take great pains to make sure that the ascendancies never mention.
I'm ready for the Rogue Exiles.
Like that they're always generalized.
Reddit
so, for example, the like, infusion mechanic in the
people getting
Amazon,
farmed by Rogue Exiles.
it just says projectiles, doesn't say spears.
It's 100% going to happen.
So that you could make an Amazon who is a bow user, and
he had Astra Mentis and he killed me.
Like,
Open-ended.
It's open-ended, and honestly, like I know that Mark does like. It makes the constraint a lot harder for how to design an ascendancy class when you have to think about it that way, for sure.
Oh, it'd be much, much easier to just put a bunch of...
Imagine you get Hammer of the Gods by Rogue Exile and it just one-taps you.
Really, I mean, it was similar to the original PoE 1 Saboteur, called out traps and mines, and so if you're a trap and mine character, what are you doing? Well, you could do something else, but no one else is playing that thing,
Right.
It isn't... it is easier to design. It is certainly less flexible and open as to what people can play in the different combinations and all that. So yeah.
How much do you have to consider the different weapons and the skills and how they interact together when you're originally designing them, or is
are people already crying in other streams?
The players will take care of that for us.
I mean, I think it is relatively impossible to come up with everything, but certainly we have to consider like
how bad's the
is
crying?
this going to be broken with anything else in particular? And then
Wait till they read the
certain
patch
rules,
notes.
for things about like how easy is it to apply this debuff, how easy it is to consume this debuff, and even then it's like we often make mistakes and have issues. I mean,
when he
Wait
says
till they read the
relatively
patch
impossible,
notes.
it is actually impossible.
actually.
But You know, I mean, yeah, I mean,
That's
just,
relative.
but even just looking at the balance pass we're doing at the moment, right? I mean, there's hundreds of things like that, you know, that we still. I mean, there's things that we could never honestly understand all of the different broken things that could possibly exist, and so it's like it really does depend a lot on.
This is the only positive
you know,
PoE
like,
2
on
stream.
seeing
I'm just
reports
watching,
and what
dude. I
people
just
are doing
woke
on
up
some
and turned
level,
this
right?
on. Like I've been awake.
But then I think that what will happen over time is that obviously, like,
been
you know,
awake.
the game's still relatively new.
I've been awake for like
we're
1
still
hour and
making
20
relatively
minutes.
big changes.
Genuinely.
Over time, the balance I think will get to the point where we no longer have these like crazy outliers to the same extent, and it should mean that we get to some sort of relative class parity. By parity, what I mean is like, you know, people playing all the different classes rather than focusing only on a few as we get towards full release. Because, you know, right now it's obviously very skewed because, you know, there's certain broken things. So yeah, the balance over time we'll get there.
It's one of the main goals and benefits of the early access is just like, let's get the balance of characters right. And yeah, this patch release was always going to have 1,000 problems, or probably 10,000 problems, you know. The next one will have half that, the next one half that, and probably eventually it's going to be down to like, here's only a few things going, you know, out of whack. There's always going to be something because we add too much content for it to even be controlled. Like, again, there are too many uniques, too many supports, too many skills, and too many other changes for any amount of people. Like, you're talking about a matter of you'd have to put in like thousands and thousands of hours
ascendancy that is
to find it where
+1 ring is broken. That's so stupid.
There's so many people it's going to take literally 5 minutes.
Ingenuity's nerfed into the gutter, but it doesn't
it's very
even matter.
beneficial. And we're lucky in that regard that we get that level of testing and feedback, and on such
Like
a
1
mass
ring
level,
is so much
and especially
stats.
you know, with things like, you know, Ninja and all of that, and other people being able to see it and discuss it more openly, we're just going to be able to iterate on it even faster. But yeah, every single patch you're going to see a pretty substantial change in what's going to happen here. Yeah.
Thanks for making the broken builds. And
well, 100%.
I mean, you mentioned support gems. It's like over 100
Like
support gems.
+1
added
ring
just
is
this
too
patch.
strong.
It's already like so many, and
It's
with
too
you
strong.
doing a different weapon for each of the 16
+1
classes.
ring is too much
It's
power.
gonna be by the time we're done. But there kind of has to be, right? Because
I know, that's what you made it. You made this system that you need so many supports to support.
You
because
do.
otherwise it's not going to work. Like especially with this one support system, it's like, what have you guys done?
Well, I mean, look, this is why we have
I don't
recommendations.
even get how that
Hopefully we can
blacksmith
improve
node
those as well
works.
and continue to
Like,
get that
do you only
better.
get to pick one per
you know,
ascendancy
like,
point? How does
There's
that
certainly
work?
room for the complexity to get a little bit out of control here. So the recommendeds are going to become more and more important.
Right.
So we need to make sure those are very much
Can
right.
you put like 6 of them?
You must be looking to players. Even
I'm assuming they
to
cost
find
1
some
ascendancy
recommendations down
point
the line as
each
well.
In some
click.
cases.
Yeah.
In some
So it's kind of like your
Stuff is
pathing nodes can
probably
also
gonna
be
the thing with the
applied there.
recommendations, though, is that they can't really take into account what you've already got on the gem.
Like, you could put
So
4
the
points
recommendations
into
have to
it,
be just sort of
right? That's
generally
how I
good, but
assume it
not really take into account
works.
combos. You know, that kind of means they're a bit more simple. Like, the recommendations are going to be more simple than what you'd otherwise be doing if you're not following them.
Feels like at some point you're going to need some sort of nested recommendation system. It's like, well, I'm kind of doing bleed stuff, so you go to the sub menu for bleed recommendations.
I'm less certain about that because I kind of don't want to get into the thing of actually telling you what your build should be. Yeah, that's a little bit different there.
Maybe like more sorting methods for the show me all the gems. Oh, there's a lot that are only in there that are never recommended, right? At this point,
There are, yes, there are.
It's going to be an interesting challenge you guys have set yourselves to make enough supports there. So another thing that you managed to challenge that you set yourselves, and I always wonder, like, why did you do this to yourselves, was Spectres. So originally those were planned to be in for launch, but obviously Spectres are
Could a
whole
normal
can of
chest be
worms.
corrupted?
Hey, let's
maybe,
just
probably.
give players access to every monster. Also, we've made so many new
We'll
monsters.
see why not.
We're talking about all the broken. There's going to be some broken in there, I promise you. And there's going to be some stuff we have to change.
I mean, they've done, but I mean, effectively, what the time
Too
between
much short story.
early access
They do this
and
every
this
time.
was
They
like,
do
okay,
too
let's
much short
actually
stories, like
attempt at
personal
least
experience.
to do a balance pass of this and like see if there's anything that's going to be a problem and then adjust numbers
Yeah, but now
accordingly.
you've got to account all those support gems on all those monsters.
Yes, well, this is an interesting thing, isn't it? The support gems work. The support gems work on them, and you know, like, what the hell is that going to do? Yeah, like, it's impossible to completely know. But yeah, like, look, I mean, there's probably definite. Well, definitely some some dark secrets lying in what kind of spectre
Growly.
games are going to do.
And monsters have skills
We
now.
know.
It's like PoE1 where it's
Exactly.
like just a bunch of zombies
We
just
know.
doing default attack. It's like everything pretty much has a skill now at this point. So
But you know, the great thing about it is we got
Dark
to leverage all
secrets,
that
we
work
know.
again for the beast taming as well. So and of course the difference there is that you also get the mods from the thing that you tamed. So you know, that's going to be
auras, ground effects.
yeah, exactly.
Spawn death explosions.
No, you've got a whole nother ruckus of potential interactions. So you know, we'll see what happens there.
We've done nice specific player versions of those things, for which specifically when you tame the beast, so that they're not sitting there spamming skills in your hideout and all of that.
Good. Yes. So
But also, like, there actually are player versions of the mods that Res can get, like, so that we can balance them if we need to.
Yeah.
Because some of that stuff would be ridiculous if you had it yourself. So you know, basically, we still have it sort of work. It mostly works the same way, but there will just be numbers tweaked to the player versions, and the same works as well for the what do you call it? The ritual sacrifice.
Headhunter,
Headhunter and stuff like that. So yeah, it's player versions of the monster mods for that.
yeah, this new attention to these things is going to benefit like the pre-existing stuff like Headhunter and that as well. Yeah, that's insane.
There's a new... probably should let people discover it. There's a new unique charm that possesses you with a random Asmeri spirit as well, and so you get the daemons and the stats, and those technically also have player versions too, but actually not to necessarily make things worse, to make things better, because monsters are balanced to fight player life and monster life, not in the same universe. So actually what we've done is all the things you steal that are monsters and monster skills, like the explosions and the summoning bears and all that, we've actually specifically balanced them way up to be more effective against monster. So when you steal them, they're much more powerful actually. Just so they're not just tickling monsters and doing 1% of their life kind of thing.
Someone
it
linked
was
me
mentioned in
that
chat,
one dude, I
actually,
forget his name,
the
where
whole,
he's
like,
like got his hands up and he's like,
modifiers and things on stuff,
Druid,
that
it's
wouldn't go-
happening.
that
Someone
wouldn't
link me that
transfer over with the
picture.
companion system.
Someone has
surely.
it. Someone link me that picture. It was in
No.
Discord.
No, that would be a little bit too far. perhaps.
yeah.
Someone link me it.
We actually had to, because this is certainly a benefit. Once you have tamed the beast, it is not tradable.
I don't know what you got.
And people might immediately be like, oh, so that's sad. Well, the issue is, and as much as you might want some of that, I'm sure you don't want to be carrying around a whole bunch of tamed
That's
beasts
not
in your
it.
inventory all the time.
The
So
actual
that every
one.
single time you find a good rare, all of a sudden you have to go and...
Because it would mean that
flame
finding
it.
a rare would
That's
be
definitely not
It's
it.
actually
I
like
didn't
this
think about that.
annoying,
What
in
is
order to
this?
make the most money, I have to be constantly thinking about and carrying around tame
But then we
beasts
also
and-
made it so that as soon as you activate a
I don't
beast,
think that's the one I was talking about.
then no one who comes into the instance
Yeah,
after that
so
is
you-
allowed to
so you
tame
can't
it.
do
So
any,
you
like-
can't TFT
Oh.
it's like a whole there's like a lot of thinking about
Oh
that
my
stuff in order
God.
to make it so that
It's a sad thing to have lost, but it is like, no, I'm not.
Why is he so happy about that?
I didn't even think about
He's
that.
so happy.
Oh, the like needing for cheat sheets and
Yeah,
guides and
exactly
stuff,
right.
like,
And so
which
you have to be
beats are
really
worth the
careful.
worth
You have to be
some
so
currency
careful.
this week.
And the thing is like it's like we design this thing and then think, oh, trading beasts is going to be fun, but then you realize that the horrific reality
actually.
of what it will turn into. It's like, yeah, okay,
Oh,
well,
no.
you know. But yeah, at least we're thinking about that kind of thing. Like with more experience that we have now, early, so that we don't
We've
sort of
been
run
down
into
that
those
road
problems.
before.
Exactly.
Yes, we have.
Yeah.
I'm glad we've learned from past
Yep.
issues with that sort of trading.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So, talking about some of the other new skills, we had the addition of the rower, which was teased quite some time ago, I think.
Yes.
But you've got it in and working now, and it looks
Yes.
like it's moving around pretty good. and
Yes.
It's obviously you've got like a big
shit, it's
downside. It knocked
Junes.
off at heavy stun stuff. You can't use melee from it, so it's for ranged attacks.
Yeah.
But it does seem like one of those things that maybe, like, everyone's going to use and no one's going to use because it's a clear speed machine.
It is a concern. I mean, look, my ideal situation is that you're using it sometimes and not using it other times. Like, if you're using it like during clear, I think it will, like you will definitely want to, but it's
Fuck old Minecraft.
we want to just make sure that we've got like sort of fun things like that, and like it's just a cool fantasy. Like there's stuff like that I just want to get in, and it's like look, if it doesn't work later, if we have to nerf it, I mean, sure, I suppose, but like I want something like that to exist. So we believe that it is balanced as much as we can.
You sound very convinced.
Yeah, yes, it's balanced.
Well, as I said earlier, you can probably get builds that get to the point of parrying indefinitely. So you can. That means theory you can probably get to the point of riding a rower indefinitely.
Sure,
right?
sure.
Again, enough evasion and enough stagger speccing into and all of that.
Yeah.
Well, fundamental
One
question actually.
armor.
Like, what's its move speed based on? Its own move speed?
The move
Yeah,
speed
that's
is
what I
just
thought,
your
would
move
just be
speed. Like
one
you,
point, right?
yeah, but it's
But
what
without
you
a penalty.
what you don't get is the penalty for when you
of
attack.
course.
Yeah.
It's not bad.
So
I
yeah,
think.
that's the.
I don't
the
think the
thing.
armor
But it's funny.
is bad.
It's funny
I
though
think-
because
I
like
need to
even
see
though
the
it doesn't
other
have a
mods.
move speed bonus, it feels like you're motoring when you're using it, just because of the fact you don't get that downside
Yeah.
anymore. Like you feel like you're the fastest thing on the planet.
It is.
When you're doing.
Yeah, there are other like more mechanical benefits, like it's considered a companion, which is a kind of subclass of minion that we've added, where you can only have one of each minion.
Why is it so
One
quiet?
companion
I feel like
base is a
Giga
keystone
amped.
for another, but you can only have one of each type. So like you can have a tame beast and a rower with the keystone,
Oh, right, yeah.
but inherently you can only have one companion.
Right, so you can't use a tamed beast if you're using the road.
And then there are heaps of passives for like if you have a companion, like companions while they're in your presence and all that kind of stuff. Heaps of that stuff around the bottom of the tree.
Yeah, I
Oh,
saw you
poo-poo
guys remade the minion
sandwich.
damage, is player damage node on the tree. It's your companion damage nodes become player damage nodes. And I was like, oh, that looks like
yes,
I'm going to
that
take
too.
that.
Well, so that's the like companion where it's like more the mercenary over to ranger huntress is more like you want your one powerful minion and benefiting that benefits you and you benefit it, and there's that like, synergy between you and your companions.
So since it is a companion, I like the idea of like balance wise. Maybe it ends up being that you're like map clearing on rollback, and then you get to the boss and you dismount like old school mounted knights who charge in battle and then dismount and fight.
Yep.
So if it ends up like that, that seems like that would be a
I
pretty
think
cool
that
balance
should
for
be,
it.
that should be the best way to use it, I believe.
Yeah, because then you gain access to your dodge roll for the boss fight where you need it.
Yeah.
And does the rower then kind of do a bit when you're not on it?
It can attack, but I mean, it's not exactly a huge damage source or anything.
It's
like
certainly better to stay at ranged. It's not the most durable of birds. For sure.
But it acts as a distraction. Maybe there's some
I
support
mean, it's a
gems
minion, right? Like
you
it
can do
attacks
things with.
things and does stuff.
Yeah, you can support it with minion supports to make it more durable and all of that. So
Yeah. Oh, I mean, there's the one that's like the minion takes 10% of the damage before you do. So sacrificial bird.
Yeah.
Poor little guy.
If I were to
So
guess,
that
just in my
sounds
head, roughly, I think
Speaking of new
I think the
100
blacksmith
new
is probably
uniques
just better
this
than
time.
Titan.
So
I see
how
the
many are
other
you
nodes,
aiming
though.
for? Kind of in general, is this about really like filling that?
I think
range?
he's kinda
We
OP.
want to have every base type have a unique.
If it only takes one
chance.
point to
Outside
get like,
of
an
boss
armor
uniques.
thing,
Outside of
it's
boss uniques,
probably gonna
but
be
we want
OP.
every
on
base
top.
type to have a a unique that you can chance. And
Yes,
so that
okay.
was with the eventual goal. One of the things, of course, that we had that was sort of a problem in early access is that because of the way, because when we were designing uniques, we kind of designed
he
them
looks really strong,
like
honestly.
in order from base type up, just literally because that's the way that like spreadsheets are arranged. It's like we ended up with all the low level uniques
enough,
first,
fair
kind of
enough, yeah.
before the high ones, and it was kind of it's we didn't see that mistake coming. Like it was kind of stupid because
thought we thought we'd get
we
through
thought
way
we'd get through
more
them
of
all,
them,
right? We were like,
so-
okay, we'll get all the uniques, and so we designed them all. It's like, okay, we'll start working on the art, just go down the list. So then we're like, oh crap, now we don't have very many in-game uniques. This time we're like, okay, we really need to make sure that in-game uniques are a thing. There's way more of them. So the focus really is on making sure there's lots of cool stuff to find. Lots of really chase things that you can
Revert
get.
res?
It's
I don't know.
not.
You discover.
I
the
like how they
sub-order
debated
changing in
the
the
multiple
Yeah,
portals.
it does help.
They showcase like you get 6 portals,
so yeah,
and then
effectively,
as soon as you're in, like
you
yellow
should.
maps,
This
back
should
to
be a
one
lot
portal.
better. And there's lots
actually
of
just
stuff there.
fucking dump
And we're just gonna keep
instantly.
going with that. By
Yeah,
the
yeah,
way,
of
like
course. Yeah.
100 now, 100 later, 100 next. Just keep going until kind of honestly, we never really stop making uniques. Like
Yeah.
It was just
especially
based on the
anyone
mod effects.
familiar with Path of Exile 1's history, is every single expansion since
Yeah,
the
it's
dawn of
one.
time has
Oh,
had new uniques added to it. So there's
Can you even get
a
6
lot
mod
there,
maps?
and there's going to be a lot here
That was
eventually
4.
as well. So yeah.
So then let's talk about the idea of
Cool.
like players seeing a unique and be like, 1x, that's not very good. What do you guys want uniques to be in Path of Exile 2? Like, how powerful should they be? What should they be aiming to do? And how should they affect the rares in that slot?
I mean, it's always a tension because we want rares to still matter. Like, we don't want just your character to be just only full of uniques. So it really is like the role can evolve. So at the start of the game, they're really supposed to be more about that. The earlier game uniques are supposed to do 2 things. One of them is when you find them, they should be
Do I
powerful
still have that image?
for a little
Let me see
while.
if I have it
But then
still.
also they have
I might
some kind of combo thing that you might be able to do with them at in game.
here?
But we don't always know exactly what
I think I got
that
rid
might
of it.
be. Like, I mean, we've got sort of ideas, obviously, but it's like we don't necessarily design
No,
to
I
say,
still have it.
okay, this unique
Watch this,
definitely
you ready?
has like
I
an
actually still
in-game
have it.
build that's going to be actually strong to do with it, and that's because you're kind of
Guess
putting
who
in
knows
things
what it
where,
is.
you
All
know,
right.
later on some other mechanic might come along or something might happen, and then people find an interesting interaction, and that's
Is this
when,
accurate?
the unique kind of comes into its own. And I mean that's the same as like Magic card design philosophy, that kind of stuff. You just put in like
this
kind of
accurate?
weird stuff and sort of maybe you find something. But obviously it can mean that like when people see a new unique, they might they dismiss it. But then
Is it
one
accurate?
day they might also be paying vast amounts for it if it becomes a meta build. So you could, but I feel like a game has to have
Grown-ass
that stuff
man
in it in order
crying.
to feel like there's lots
Basically,
of
that's
interesting
what he
ways to
looks like.
experiment. Because like it's like the feeling of being the first person to discover some new interaction is an amazing thing, and then when people see something that like feels smart,
why
it's
is there
like,
an emote for
like
it?
if we don't
17
have
emote
uniques
for
that
it?
just take chances and do weird shit, we'll never have that kind of stuff happen.
Yeah.
I'm not having that.
When we're designing
Stupid.
a unique, we don't think about what's the value going to be.
Yeah.
We're not even coming out of it going like this is going to be really expensive or this is going to be really cheap.
Well, in
like,
some cases,
that's-
you know.
Well,
you
yeah,
knew what you were doing with that Herald unique.
Nah, not it's more of the charm and but that's the thing. Are you aiming for the? Honestly, there's someone said the other day they're like a successful unique is one that should be divisive, and I was like, I agree. For the most part, but not every unique should fill that role. Some should just be clearly, this is powerful. I want
What
it
are you
for sure.
doing?
It is going to be on my build.
You guys are doing
and
some
others are
curse
like,
ass
what
shit.
can I do with
I
this
like that. I'm not showing
now?
that
And
one.
then others are just like, we don't know if anyone's going to do anything with this.
Motherfucker.
Throw it in, and sometimes it doesn't get anything happen with it for 3 years. But we don't know that necessarily. It's like, let's just take an experiment and throw it in there and let the players figure that out.
Yeah, I feel like you're with a lot of these uniques, you're designing a question. You're just like, I'm going to put something that's a little weird. Maybe someone will figure that out.
Well, I think as Rishi called it, it's a puzzle piece, right?
Yeah.
It's just a piece in the puzzle. You put it there, and maybe someone will complete the puzzle or half of it. Maybe not. And then others where it's just like, yeah, this is powerful. Like,
I mean, there are definitely some chase uniques in this. In this
Yeah,
situation.
100%.
Like, oh, definitely. Yeah.
So on chase uniques, then we've obviously had some like pretty crazy ones so far. Where do they want to be in terms of like how hard they are to get for players? Because at that point you do need to consider like how expensive they end up being.
It's really tricky. So whenever we're looking, so if there's a unique that's broken, I guess there's two responses, right? One of them is make it rare enough that you only get the brokenness after the point when you're at the point where you're supposed to get that, right?
Yeah.
Which is to say, like post pinnacle
Shows
boss
great
type,
ratings, dude.
like a late level of character
Yes.
development,
Oh,
right?
what the fuck?
And then the other.
Do I play
response would be
softcore or
no
hardcore
unique,
first
and
character?
It honestly is a case by case.
I think if I play hardcore, I'm eating shit, honestly,
I think
but I might do
that,
it.
Like Temporalis, for example, actually got nerfed in both ways. The actual
More a
unique was nerfed
softcore
a
into
little bit,
hardcore
I believe,
angle.
although I don't believe it's maybe as much
Exponential
as players might
stalling.
expect. But then also you've got okay, whatever. But also we have made that one rarer.
It's still pretty crazy.
Oh,
in
it's
the
still
right
crazy
sense,
for sure,
yes.
for sure. But the thing is like you want to
play
chase
hardcore
stuff,
anyway.
right? So therefore you don't want to just go nerfing everything into the ground the moment that it's
Yeah.
good. So therefore that one becoming rarer, I think, was the right answer there, because it was way too common. Just due to the
We had also the issues with
True.
I mean, there were three real issues. One is Darkness at one point bypassed Honor Loss, so all of a sudden a no-hit run. It wasn't a no-hit run.
Yeah.
You had Guard bypass Honor Loss, so once again a no-hit run is not a no-hit run. And then there was just like, well, how can anything hit
Why
you
is there
if
a
you
plus
can kill
one
literally
ring
everything on your
ascendancy,
screen in
though?
one frame?
That's so
So
stupid.
those three problems, and so as the balance issue of not everything surviving for more than one frame due to a subset of builds, and those other two things go away, it becomes a lot rarer in itself. It is much harder to acquire, require like very specific and ideally high skill gameplay. And then there's just like, well, it also was just too common, the relic that yielded it.
I mean, the expectation was that, because this is a hard challenge, most of the time when people try, they will fail. The reality is once you get the ability to do it, you just trade for that thing and get it every time.
Yeah.
So that's kind of meant that the
Printing.
rarity kind of didn't work like we thought, and now that should be better in both ways.
Again, for the PoE 1 players comparison, like it was far more common than Original Sin. Which was the same role in PoE 1's version of the Sanctum, just to give us some sort of comparison.
It's just much easier to actually reliably do it.
And it shouldn't have been that much more common.
Right.
Yeah, gotcha. So crafting really surprised me. You guys announced, I thought we'd maybe get like one little thing, maybe you'd do something with essences or something, but we've got essences coming out a lot more. It looks like you've got because you're violent. You can
So
into
greater
graders
essences,
now.
greater essences are going to be much easier to get. One
The
thing
coolest
we
thing I
didn't
saw in
mention the video
this,
is that, like,
honestly,
omens,
were those all
are
unique maps,
way
like
more
that Lake
common,
of
because I
Kalandra, the
believe
one
it
that
changes
spawns
an
like
omen
10
every-
bosses?
2.5 times more common, I think.
Yeah, than every
Were those
thing.
unique
So like you've got
maps?
stuff like that. Like we certainly knew that we
Or were
needed
they
to
just, like,
do more
regular
with block
maps?
crafting stuff, and so we're kind of like, well, let's just make sure we're at
These
least
are all
adding,
unique
you know,
maps?
3
I
or
feel like
4
every map in
things,
the
like
game
new
should be like
things
that.
so, you know.
Every ritual will now have at least one omen.
Like, just every map should be like
so
that.
you can
like,
know
it's
if
its
upon
own
finishing a ritual,
identity.
you're like, what is the omen I'm going to get, and
Yeah,
hope it's a good one. And
Love it.
maybe most often it's not, but
Or just
But
like
yeah, the
way
greater
more of those,
essences,
I don't know.
obviously,
Just,
yeah,
like,
the Valor
way
thing
more of
makes
that
it
shit.
much more common. You know, there's more sources of them with the map and everything like that. So
Like, imagine
that'll be
PoE
happening
2 was
more.
just like that
And
kind
then,
of
of course, there's the
experience every
improvements
map.
to things like the runes. We've got higher level mods that you can get from them. There's like a ton more runes. There's like, you know, yeah, like I mean, we just wanted to expand the set, and having the kind of like the niche mods that you can get and craft on things, like it just needed more options. And yeah, it's sort of interesting because like some people say, oh, you don't have crafting in PoE 2 because we don't have a crafting bench, but it's like we actually have a huge number of crafting options, and the crafting being good kind of comes down to like how many of these kind of weird systems are there and how they can interact. But we just have to be really
Reddit's gonna
careful
mock him
because
for
you know
saying
like
this.
you don't want to get to the point where ground items no longer matter. Like and I think PoE 1 kind of basically did get to that point for various reasons, where like people aren't caring about what's on the ground nearly as much. So we still want to make sure with every change we're making that they still
taunting
use the
them.
ground stuff, that you're still excited for things on the ground, like, and so that's like a really careful balancing act because they do directly contravene each other. Like the better stuff you can craft, the less important the ground stuff is. So you kind of, it's a really sort of subtle balancing act. But yeah, I think that the stuff we've added here will definitely push things in a way where you feel like there's more smart things that you can do to kind of improve your stuff.
Cool
Yeah,
ball.
well, I think done right, and what
I'll
you're
go
doing
on.
is making sure that the ground items do matter with each of these crafting systems. So
exactly.
you had that fundamental change where you can't just turn an item back into a white item. whenever you
Exactly,
want.
and that's very important. One of the biggest ones, I think, and that kind of then unlocks the ability to do more. And so the great thing about the socketables as a crafting system is that they don't compromise the ground at all because they don't, they're on top of the stuff that you can get on the ground. So that's very good. But when it comes to the kind of the base mods, we do want to retain, like, that an item has. We do want to retain, for the most part, the kind of thing of like that part of the item generation is random. It's just that, it's just that on top of that, you get the more deterministic things that you can add in addition to. And then when you do it
think
that
the
way,
big
it works
booty
really well.
Latina
So
furries
socketables
guys
work
in
really
chat?
well as a crafting system for that reason.
And why is there a
Well,
person
so
named
on
Dark
that
Finkel
topic,
Fart Slave?
we've had this talking to you. It's like you're always saying to me that like this rune system is our crafting bench, but
Yes.
players don't
Rune
keep
stuff?
asking
I'm
for a
just getting
bench
blasted
anyway.
Right.
So obviously there's like a
Ads.
branding issue or a
100%.
functionality
So
gap
it
here.
is funny because I was actually saying the other day that like if we had literally had that system be identical, except that the way it was themed was that there's a crafting bench you go to and craft extra mods on the items, like which literally be functionally the same, I think, and required materials that are effectively the runes that you get. Like then I feel like people would be thinking that we've got a crafting bench. But yeah, ultimately that is that the rune system, the socketables are what replaced the crafting bench in the PoE 1 style crafting bench.
And I guess it must have also been like with that initial kind of output of them was just not as many options as
100%
what you
as
had
well. So that is
access
the issue,
to.
and that's because they were relatively late in development. So now we're just sort of
This
expanding.
guy's
that.
OP.
We'll continue to add more socketables probably with every release, right? Like we'll add more categories of them. They'll do different things. It's like expanding the.
This
kind
guy's
of,
actually OP.
There is a thing where it's the more like. In the base mod pool for items,
Who's
there can only be
actually
things that are
OP?
really fundamental, and so anything that's kind of out there, we don't want to put in the base mod pool because then you end up with this sort of situation where you get items and they've got random shit you don't care about. Like the crafting
Yeah.
is where you want to have all of the kind of stuff that's like very build specific.
Yeah.
And so adding more mods to that pool so that you can do
Fire
that is
spell
really
on hit.
Why is it that you
Is there a
can't
good fire spell in the
socket
current
and
game?
some things, like non-attack weapons, for example?
well,
It was more just a choice for asymmetry.
Hello?
It was also just like a little bit of a like, in the future we'll add some system where we can do something else there, and so just not having everything be completely identical, much like how the quality on those weapons works differently, where it affects the
Dude,
skill
this
as
guy
opposed
is
to just
retarded. I'm playing
base
this guy.
damage.
Fuck this guy.
I do think it is something that we should be probably looking into sooner rather than later, though.
Yeah.
Because, yeah.
Yeah, because the asymmetry things, it's good to have like not everything be super homogenous, but because we're
Dude,
talking
this
about the
is
importance
stupid.
of it being that extra layer of.
I'm
control
pretty
over
sure you
items,
can get
which
90
just
max
don't
res
have
pretty
if you're
easy.
doing
This
spells.
guy's OP
We'll
as
add an
fuck.
artist's bench and do it that way.
This guy's actually OP as fuck.
Okay, all right. You forced my hand. I have to bring this up now. Can we get some sort of like cohesive,
This guy's
all-in-one
nuts.
bench for disenchanting, salvaging, selling for gold, arcanist benching.
I'm
at
playing
endgame.
this guy.
I get in the campaign having these things be separate, but I like at endgame, it's
you're
so
not
much clicky.
You're not
busy
happy
work.
enough with them just being next to each other, putting them next to each other, and you know.
No,
All right. Well, that's all right. I'll think about that one.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I planted the seeds at least.
Yeah. Okay.
I've done my part.
All right.
There's ways.
Max, there's ways.
Can only use a normal body armor, so
Well, at least for endgame.
by that text, it means it could
Yeah,
be double
I
corrupted still.
don't want the world to not feel like it makes
Right?
sense.
Absolutely.
So,
But
having it that you can just,
endgame,
like,
but
normal
you're
item
fine out
still.
with it.
It would have
It's
to be a
double
hideout
corrupted.
related thing.
Yeah. That makes sense. I mean, people.
Yeah, this guy's kind of badass. I ain't gonna lie.
Anyway, so
Yeah.
the law goes out the window at that point.
For sure.
So we've also got fractured, crafted via an orb from the cleansed
Mm-hmm.
monsters. How rare are those?
how do you quantify rarity like that? They drop from the monsters.
Yeah, this guy's
I can't
fucking
remember the exact
really
number,
good.
But like I think I was.
Alright,
gonna
I'm
say,
playing
like,
hardcore,
one
this
per
is fine.
biome, which is the kind of total blob of.
I'm
the
playing
cleansed
hardcore, this
monsters,
guy's fine.
But then that obviously does get affected by things like pack size and all
Yo.
that on top of that.
So is that
and
like
then,
5 maps or something?
Well, it depends on how many of them.
I'm playing
you
this guy. This
kill
guy's OP as fuck.
Yeah,
Because
so-
because the ones you didn't cleanse.
This is
while
like
you
a
were,
better jug than
getting to the
MPOE1.
Nexus. Those are the ones that then become cleansed. So you kind of have to choose, like when you go into a biome, am I going to beeline straight for the Nexus and then cleanse everything, or am I going to just fight them all as corrupted to get the rewards from that? So you're kind of choosing one.
My
or the other
initial
based on
thought at looking at this is this guy's
Okay,
so
you can kinda leave
strong.
the Nexus for last if
You can
want.
play
Yes,
any
if you
build
want
on
to
it.
try and get more
It's genuinely one of
Oh no,
those.
it's the other way around.
Other way
So
It's
do-
one of
do
those where you
Nexus
genuinely
first,
can play
then
any
it
build
cleanses
and
all the
entire game
maps,
on this.
And then now you can get the most chance at fractured orbs, or you can fight them corrupted before going to the Nexus if you want to get the rewards that the corrupted maps have.
And we have like for example,
Any
the
druid
corrupted bosses
news?
have
Only
their own uniques
reason I
now.
got the
So you're gonna
game.
want that.
There's a bunch of new modifiers and
Yeah.
how they, so there's like
Yeah.
random corrupted strongbox kind of things and all of that stuff. So
Clever.
you kind of really are like, I'm gonna have a look at the mods. I like
Are
this. I'm
there-
gonna do this, then this, then this, then the
This guy's
Nexus,
sick
and then
as
I'm gonna
fuck.
do the rest
What is
cleansed.
this?
Does the cleansed boss have its own uniques as well?
Not
20%
Not yet.
It
strength.
does have. It guarantees a fractured
What
orb
is
though as
this?
well.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
So you can get the boss.
So and you'll display if you hover over the map and it says like contains I can't remember his name. Then you run it and kill it, you will get a fractured orb. So at least you will know that.
5% region is actually a fuckload.
With the fractured orbs being away fracturing, that's obviously super powerful for crafting. Are there any fractured
How many
items
mods can you
dropping
take for the
pre-fractured?
armor?
I quite liked that.
Oh, it's one
I
ascendancy
think we
point
went
per.
with no in the end.
play.
Yeah, we were going to
Not
do it, but
So
then
you
we
could
decided
take
not to.
8
We might do it
in
later.
theory.
Yeah,
You could
so
do
an extra
8.
add-on. Is there a particular reason for it? Or
There's a reason to go
There
8.
just kind of wasn't anything that really fit.
Kinda, actually.
That exactly, I think.
You
At some point,
probably
you'll
wouldn't want to,
some
but
new thing to
Yeah,
go in
probably.
that
You
would
could
be like,
take
this
it.
feels
Personally,
could
right.
I
take
would
8.
rather just drop more orbs. Honestly, and let people choose how they
like
want
on
to
your
use
very
them.
first character,
I like it from the perspective.
you just
of
take like
what items
strength,
matter.
life,
Like, when you're
Yeah,
seeing
but
a rare,
they kind
and
of
then
already
like,
fist taking us fire.
They kind of do here anyway because
Regen.
Because you
because
use
you
it
need that as
really
the
strong
thing with the
nodes.
fractured
It makes
orb, so it's
sense.
kind of not necessary, I think.
you can cap all your res.
There's other little subtle things, like for example, the cleansed monsters within cleansed maps
Meek creature!
can't drop equipment.
Alkaizer.
Is a little thing, so they have much higher. Obviously, they're dropping things more like waystones, tablets.
Dude, this guy's
currency.
sick as fuck.
They
Yeah, this
don't
guy's
get
nuts
drop
for early
any
game,
of
but
the
he
armor
also
or anything,
scales
so
like a
they're more like
motherfucker.
currency sources is like an
Yeah,
interesting.
this
subtle
guy's
thing.
actually
currency then,
bullshit.
You know?
So
This
we
guy's
have more
actually
instances,
bullshit.
more omens, potentially ability to get fractured.
This is Ancestral Commander all
new,
over
more
again.
accessible at low and mid.
Remember how I was
Design
like,
full
dude,
swing
everybody
on.
like
Yeah.
This
everybody
is,
just ended up playing
yeah,
Ancestral
it's
Commander.
it's
That's
certainly
basically
under
this again.
changes.
Everybody's
This
just
is
gonna play
a
this guy.
huge leap forwards compared to 0.1's crafting.
For sure.
So was it just about that you had to establish that really like humble baseline for crafting?
Yeah, he needs
so that
nerf,
you could then
genuinely.
go crazy with like this?
Honestly,
Zaki,
I mean, look,
where
on
you
some
at?
level, it
Are
can
there any
be,
devs here?
like,
Nerf this before it comes
you
out.
need an
It's way
economy
too
to see how
good.
things evolve. You know, we just don't want to do too much at once. I mean, although this may seem like quite a lot. I mean,
It does, yeah.
but the thing is like,
I mean,
but
plus
in terms
one
of the
ring is
the
pretty
initial
good,
System, it's like
to
if we'd
be
have had
fair.
all that at the start.
Yeah.
I think that we wouldn't have been.
This
like,
is another level, honestly.
Put it this way, it is hard to take this stuff away, so that's why we have to be a little bit careful as we do this.
Yeah, I guess you needed to kind of assess the fundamental things like the no scours, the no
Yeah,
ults,
100%,
and stuff like
100%.
that as well. Because
Some negative
then
attack
you
speed
can
nodes. What if they got
argue
rid of
how to build
those
off
off
that,
of
which
mace
I'm
skills?
super excited for crafting.
What if?
But of course, and if
actual
you know
crafting.
us, like more.
Dude, that guy is nuts,
There's always
though.
gonna be more.
Oh yeah. Oh, you gotta have a new craft for every league, right? That's how it is these days.
Oh, yes.
I expect a crafting system for every league. Thank
Yep,
you.
something like that.
That's somewhat actually our intention. So
yeah.
I love it. Love it. Perfect. So let's talk about Endgame then, because that had some humble origins as well with the initial implementation of PoE 2's Endgame. Obviously trying some new things, being a bit experimental, not necessarily just wanting to copy PoE 1's Endgame. But how far of your vision was 0.1's Endgame? Was it what you want?
I would say that the main problem that we had is there wasn't enough overlapping axes of randomness, as we call them, where effectively you need to have it so that when you go into a map, there's just chances for random shit occurring.
This guy's a group play guy,
then
kind of.
that random shit like might happen alongside some other random shit, and then now the thing together is like a new scenario. So I mean, effectively,
Random
like
shit squared.
yeah, exactly, right. So let's like if you look at what we actually added here in terms of like encounters, if you will, whatever that means to you, like we've added kind of more than 40, probably something approaching 50 encounters, and that's if like if you count things like each rogue exile is a separate one, and each like spirit's a different one, and things like that, right? So those are the things. But the big difference between the ones we had before and the ones we have now is that most of these ones can overlap with other things. So you have a situation where you've got the Asmeri Wisp that like happens to infect the unique boss of the area, and then that leads to a combat situation that you haven't had to deal with before.
Do we know what cold
or then
infusion
like
is?
you've got some essence thing that like or like, oh crap, that like this other wisp like caused the thing to turn into a boss. That then, it's just like it's all that stuff combining, or like what happens when this goes with a with a unique strongbox, and it's like all that combining stuff, and that's what leads to the situation where you've got an exponential explosion of like possible combat situations, and then sometimes you just run into stuff that you've never seen before because of that. So this combined in some interesting way, and that's something that definitely PoE 1 has got very well because it's got so many of these things that have been added over time, and it's also something that we took care to make sure that each league specifically did. So what PoE 2 lacked was, I think, that. And so that will mean, I think, that the end game is overall just much more engaging. Now, obviously, we're going to be adding more content and, more of the other stuff. But
evasion from helmet, gloves,
it was
boots is
specifically
double,
more
but your
that
body
type
armors have.
of stuff
So
that we
you
needed
don't
to do.
want to use
And
a
honestly,
pure
I don't
evasion
think we even got
armor,
enough yet.
basically.
Like, we want even more.
Really, an evasion armor,
we'll keep on adding that stuff, but it needed to become a focus. And I think part of the
This
reason
ascendancy
is that,
looks kind of weak, but
like,
I don't
when
know what any
you're-
of this does.
Like when
maybe
we
this
first
stuff is
working on the
good.
end game, it's right. It's like we need to come up with the big ticket
Infusion,
items, right? Like what are the the league things and like the maps, and we need to come up with all that stuff. And so it's the little detail
one
kind of
charm
things
slot.
that kind of
Fuck
a
yeah,
little,
dude.
require a bit more like time and stuff to work on. Even though they're actually like relatively efficient to make. Like we can make a lot of them when we do actually sit down and design them, because they're like making a new strongbox. Like sure, it's work, but it doesn't take like that long, if you know what I mean.
These
but it is,
pathing nodes are downsides,
it
and you have
that
to
stuff that
choose
really
which
adds a lot of
downside
flavor
you're
and kind of
taking.
interest.
What the
So
fuck is
we'll
that?
just be continuing to do that through the game. And I mean, even yesterday we were having a conversation.
Dude, this thing
about,
is
like,
so nuts.
making
This
it so
pathing
more
here.
of the maps, even just like regular maps, have more interesting just
This
little
ascendancy
things
is
that
really
happen
strong.
in them and stuff like that. Like more like what the campaign has.
Love
I don't know what
so
Blood
we
Blood
haven't like
Boil
got
is.
there
They
yet,
said it,
but, like,
right? I
as,
remember. I
through
was
early
listening.
access, we'll definitely be just like introducing more of those little details everywhere, so that you get the interesting things happening.
Yeah, so a bit like those exploration mechanics.
Yeah,
in
this guy's
campaign.
pretty
100%,
generically
yeah,
just
exactly.
strong.
That's just we just want to make sure that you feel that same way through the in-game as well.
And with the leagues as well.
Yeah.
And like there's really only so much randomness that can occur within a breach in a map, and so they will end up feeling ultra repetitive. Whereas and again in PoE 1 you had the boss that could spawn occasionally, you had 5 different factions, things like that, and it is very much our intention to expand on all the leagues, to have way more random things occurring, mini bosses spawning, whatever else. I have a whole set. I don't want to spoil them all yet because that's a whole later thing. But definitely want to expand on all that. Even Expedition only has the one boss. It had 4 in the predecessor. Like we need to get back to having all of that depth and all of combat and all of those mechanics, and it'll help hugely, while also making sure we're adding new ones, of course. But what we definitely have learned is that our minimum standard for new ones is going to have to, it should include all of these things.
How
from the
good
get-go.
is that? Your life cannot
Otherwise we're just
change
signing
while you have
ourselves up for, like, here's
ES.
1,000 things we need to improve. It'd be nice to actually get some of them finished. So that's going to be a goal going forward for sure.
But I think it's like it is where our type of design shines, because
Like, why is that a
like,
4.0?
adding content
Am I
is
missing a
no longer
mechanic here?
process of,
Because
like,
that seems
we
like
work
kind
on a
of
thing
like, hey,
and
I
the players get to
can't
play,
die to
like,
things that pure CS.
It gets into a situation where like adding content is more valuable.
I feel like
than
there's
just
some
the
retard
content
text
itself,
somewhere in
like,
there,
because it adds to everything else too.
but I can't think
and
of
so that
that.
kind of makes it feel like the world gets like larger in much larger proportion than what you have, and so like it's an n squared thing where like the square of all the stuff we add. So that, like basically it'll feel like it's ramping up in terms of interest as we add more content, rather than just feeling like you're just continuing like rather than every league feeling like you just add the same amount. It'll feel like it gets even bigger each time.
Yeah, like when you add Asmeri
something that
Wisps,
costs life, I guess.
It's not just about adding that. It interacts with all the other things.
Yeah,
that
I
already
guess
exist
life
that can
costing stuff is the
go
most
ahead and
obvious.
So that's tackling one of the ultimately, I think, the biggest things is just that like the core basic mapping of running an empty map was boring, and that's never what you want to be, obviously. So like some of the issues there, I guess, as well that were exacerbated by that problem was the fact that the maps were so big and that there were so many of them.
Power charges.
Obviously, that's getting a lot better with the maps themselves becoming much more interesting. But
cool.
It seems like this corruption and cleansing mechanic is
This guy's OP.
breaking up and giving you
This
something
guy's
to
fucking
progress
nuts.
through as you move towards the
Why?
next tower or next boss or
guy's
next other mechanic.
so
I mean, I guess there's always
stupid.
something
This guy
on
needs
your
nerf.
screen that you're pushing towards.
Like, there's
right?
just no
Well, we
bullshit
want
about
to
it.
try
Like,
and
it's not even.
like,
It's
honestly,
not
I don't even
okay
think we're
in the
even
current
quite there
game.
yet. Like, we really want to make it so that you feel
This
like
isn't
there's lots of
okay. It's just
quests,
the truth.
as it
It's
were,
just
in
not
game,
okay.
like not necessarily directly in the form
It
of like
should
here's
be
a
nerfed.
quest objective, but like
Yeah.
that you
Before
sort of
the
have
game
this
comes
feeling
out.
of like there's like different stuff that you're like that
there's
you
a
feel
thing.
like there's a thing, like
Yeah.
exactly right. You need to ideally like every time you
double
do one of
armor.
those, it's like there's another one just on the horizon
Exactly.
that you're
Yeah.
thinking
Maximum
about. So
evade chance is
yeah, if we can
50.
achieve that, then we'll have succeeded. But yeah,
Maximum PDR
need
is
to keep adding
50.
stuff, right? Like just more and more things, because
So-
obviously you need to have enough just core there to be able to get to the point of it doesn't feel like you're just repeating the same thing over and over again as well.
It seemed like this like explorable world map thing that you did for Endgame, it being like looking like a physical actual map, was really wanting us to explore, but that wasn't really much of that. So
You can choose.
kinda-
Yeah, well, I
only
mean,
one,
ideally
though.
we can. It's just
You
about
can't choose
content
only
really at that
one
point,
for
right?
sure
We just need to add
because
more and more, and we'll keep on adding more. And this
We'll
this
100% get more.
yeah, and 0 to 0 I think goes a long way to
then it would be like
So
2
with the
points
corruption
here.
mechanic now you're going
right?
to see some corruption on the map.
4
and you're gonna
points,
go there
6
because
points.
It's a
And
system.
then like
Yeah,
you
yeah,
click
interact
this
with
7
it.
point, and then you would
Skill
have one
points.
filler point. That
Yes,
makes
yes.
sense, right?
So you're
Yeah,
unlocking
you
skill
click as
points
many as
from
you
that,
want.
which means you're unlocking more of the Atlas
So
tree earlier on.
Your first Nexus, you have to run at a tier 1 map, and it will
Great.
drop 2 skill points. It'll give you your first 2 skill points.
Awesome.
And then you're like, all right, where's my next Nexus? That's where I'm going for my next 2. And then your next one, and you have to do them 1 tier higher every time. So the second one you go to at tier 2 to get your skill points
This
and so on
guy's
and so
really.
forth.
It's not
And
just
that's it.
it's not just grind 10 maps.
Yeah, that was terrible.
good. I love it.
So yeah, it is very much like let's go and clear these corrupted Nexus, and then it's like, well, and there's the whole mechanic around it. But yeah, if
think
you
this
want to just
guy's
like,
actually
I want to get my points
not
as fast as possible, just go Nexus to Nexus to Nexus
bad.
and get as many as you can. If you're like, oh, I can't see any Nexus, maybe go to a tower to reveal more, and then what you're doing way less frequently, mind you, thank goodness.
Yes.
But yeah, it's a lot more objective driven as opposed to just again random grind and random
I don't
exploration.
think
There's
this
at
guy's
least,
bad.
and you should be seeing a
Maybe they
pretty
buff
decent
banners
chunk of
too,
unique
but
maps.
I was gonna ask.
well,
Change banners a bit.
I call them
It's
unique
funny, yeah, it's
maps.
funny because I was pointing out to Matt the other day the
But I
distinction
don't think
between a
this guy's
unique
bad.
map and
I think
a
he's decent.
normal. Like there is no.
He's better than the
We
Witch
shouldn't even
Hunter
look
guy.
at that way. Like it should be that every map is like unique in some sense.
There's not a unique
You know,
map.
there's not a
These
We
unique
have
map.
an
Yeah,
icon.
exactly.
We do have an icon for it because they are kind of in a different echelon.
Yeah.
But yes, technically,
This is basically just
unique
double
map is a
armor.
name that's a holdover from Imperial
Yeah, because
1.
you can
Yeah.
use mods with them with Waystones.
But it's
anyway,
only
so it
double
doesn't
armor
there's no
long as
actual
you-
reason
you
for a
know,
unique
you're
to
not
be any
going
different
over
than a normal
50%
one.
You
evasion.
can craft
It's
it
just,
and
it's,
enhance
it
and
really
juice
just
it.
it really just comes down to how rare they are relative to other things, right? So,
And how rare are they?
You
How,
never get
like,
stunned.
I mean,
maybe
again,
in
so hard to
terms of
explain.
player screen.
yeah, I mean, look, as I said, I think
he's
How many
okay.
screens?
How many? I had the numbers. I just don't remember them.
well, I mean, as I said, they should be common enough that you feel.
I
like
think
there's
this
always
guy's
some kind of
OP.
objective you're excited
Yeah,
about from the
This
series,
guy's even
right?
more
Honestly,
OP. The other three,
More
I
common
don't
than
know,
I
they're
was
kind of
initially comfortable
whatever.
with,
I
and
don't
then
know what
after
this shit
trying
is.
it, I was like, okay, actually, this is like,
Yeah.
this is reasonable. So
Yeah, I feel like you initially probably want them
This
to
guy's
be
okay.
common enough that you're like almost getting tired of those map layouts, so then you're incentivized to add more.
the good thing is, by the
This
way, by
guy's
adding
definitely
more
OP.
here, we didn't
Like,
just
plus
keep
one
them
ring
the
is
same
so dumb,
commonality as
and
the
then
two
you
that
have this.
existed.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
they
On
are
top
just
of
more
it.
common. It's not like the reason. Part of the reason it wasn't as common
Penny
before
equal free
is because there was only
charges?
two,
That's
and
true, yeah.
That would have just been repetitive and boring. One of the other restrictions is that like the Vault of Kamasa was restricted to the Val City biome, so to speak, and that was one of the Citadel biomes. That's like one of the rarest and latest,
Yes.
So it's like we've not only made that more common within that biome, but a lot of the new ones, in fact, all of the new ones aren't restricted to those city biomes, and thus they are appearing more frequently. And some of them are like, oh, you want deserts because they give you the essence map, or you want the mountain because they can give you this and that, So like, ideally, there's a little bit of just like you see the edge of a desert, and you're like, oh my god, please.
Yes. Okay. So that's what I was going to say. This like idea of exploration is like I felt there needed to be something biomes where like you're actually pushing into a biome because there's that one node that like affected your drops slightly,
Well,
but obviously that's not much.
The one that was the Shattered Lakes, for example, as you can probably imagine, only spawns in the water biome. And so there's a little bit of like, and so does Untainted Paradise,
They
and
nerfed the belt.
so does one
from
other.
whatever
So there are
things.
actually 3
okay.
special maps that can spawn only in the water.
Good.
So go to the water.
And otherwise, how easy is it to find? You said there was an icon. Obviously, you kind of have an idea of what biomes. Is it like also something that's pretty visually
Oh, there's art there. Yeah.
spottable on the map?
Yeah, so the one we
looks
looked at with the
interesting.
one we looked at with the megaliths, which had all the storm and lightning. Well, on the map, it has a bunch of storm and lightning.
Cool.
So, yes.
That's awesome. Cute. That's great. So we mentioned the Atlas
Is there anything cool
passive tree,
else
and you're
revealed?
seemingly, I think, you're getting
Hidden?
better progression of that. But definitely an issue I had with it personally was that it felt very top heavy, both for the core one and also for, especially for the league mechanics, where like the league mechanics you don't get points until you kill the bosses, which to me feels like the end of it for most players.
That kind of was the original pitch of that, and I wouldn't say that's really changing here, but there is more we want to do with that, and I think that it could be made better, but 020 isn't getting a change there to that side. But in terms of the actual core Atlas, it definitely is. You know, like you're getting that earlier. There's more. It's a bigger tree. There's more interesting stuff.
There's subtle changes to getting them in the sense that, like, for example, the difficulty 0 pinnacle bosses are way lower life.
Well, that's actually
now.
good. That's actually a very good point. So yes, difficulty 0 is now like half the life that it had before, and so that's like a pretty
But
substantial
difficulty
change.
4 is currently the same
Yeah.
as what it was before. So it's same top end, but like easy, more accessible for more people at the bottom end.
Right.
And then also because of like, due to the reliquary key working the way it does, all pinnacle bosses can drop all uniques at all difficulties, except they are like substantially less common at difficulty 0. But you feel way less bad for running them at that point now.
Yeah.
So again, it's just
My cook?
opening
Like, what
that
is
up
this,
to a
like,
lot more people to farm, and it's not so
Bombs?
much dependent on if your build can't do difficulty 4, you're not really a viable character kind of mindset.
So much more easy
site
onboarding
is
for
evolved.
those.
Which will
pinnacle
give you your
bosses now.
first sets of points to be
Yeah,
a
what
lot
the
easier
fuck
now.
is happening? Huh?
That being said, not if you're playing the most broken build of all time, because you're probably nerfed into the ground, let's be real. So with your new build, we'll have to see how that balance goes.
With their new broken build.
Yeah,
that's
well,
sure.
yeah, one of those
New
one of those
builds,
specters.
yeah.
Anyway, the ultimate point being, you're certainly going to get those initial set of points easier than before. However, you are right that something isn't quite right there still, and I do need to kind of explore.
We are going to do more with this like later. We've talked about this issue, but we didn't have time to do anything about it in 020 as much. But certainly by the end of early access, I think that system will probably look quite different.
Part of it also, as we were talking about before, adding all those extra bits of content to the leagues, it'll
pretty
help
strong.
give more interest to the trees and more nodes we can add to actually invest into. Because if you think about a breach, there's only so much you can actually modify right now. Right, there's a level of radius, speed, density of monsters, and like there's the standard stuff with monsters, but like you can only go so far when you don't have all of that depth of different factions and different bosses and different mini bosses and different itemizations or additional things
10%
with,
more attack
catalysts
speed.
and whatnot. Like you
Rambling.
are quite limited in
This
how
gym
expansive a
looks
tree
kinda
can be, and so it'd be nice to get those things in and also kind of look at the trees at the same time and reevaluate how that works, just so we can have them be more interesting while we're at it.
Right.
But yeah.
And now with the pinnacle bosses, if you're like halfway through a level, you don't need to. Oh, maybe I'll do that when I get the rest of the level now.
Yes, that was a good change.
That was a good change.
So yeah, as you were saying, you no longer gain experience or lose experience anymore from Pinnacle, so you could just feel free to do them anytime. I think that's just a straight up upgrade, and I think that it's not like you were playing Pinnacle bosses for experience.
No.
So it does the downside is not an issue really.
It also is the nice thing of really just keeping, like, if we add more leagues, for example, and we end up with a Domain of Timeless Conflict problem, where it's just like rotations to max level, like ultra
Yes, we
quick.
don't want that type of
Like,
content to
at
be the
least
way you
now
level.
we can say like maps are the way you level, like that is what you're doing.
Parried
And
enemies
sure,
take
you
more
might get
spell
some sort of
damage.
unique map rotation here, and maybe not. I don't know. Depends. But hopefully we can avoid that. But either way, like, it's just really you're playing in maps to level, and that's what you're doing.
It's
and there's
not,
something
that's not
nice about
itemized
that.
content, right?
At
though?
least,
It's not something
at
like
least
that.
until we've added Delve.
Well, sure. I mean, there will be future parallel in-game systems.
Confirmed.
Right? Like,
Gain
I know you
onslaught
want to do
during a
something
fest.
else.
yes.
You're a fan. You're a fan. I mean, you made the end game.
Used when you're
so-
affected by a slow.
But yeah, that's been a long-term problem, and one we need to properly apply to the other game as well. the whole like
There's
not
more stuff that I missed.
can't do my content because I got a level, and I'm like, even if you're only like 15% in, you're like, oh.
It's just not as bad.
Yeah.
It's just not as bad in PoE1 because the leveling is faster.
Yeah, it's true.
I don't think fracturing orbs
it
are a big
hasn't
deal,
been on our
honestly.
radar as much.
They don't bother me.
So
It's fine.
speaking of like map progression, there's been some fundamental changes there. You're telling me that now you can no longer drop maps below your current level of map.
It's correct. So
50% increase
no longer
effect
get,
of
if you're playing,
socketed
a
runes
T5
and
map,
soul
you're only going to
cores.
get T5 maps, or if there's a boss there, a T6 map. But we've also smoothed the way the whole progression works. So we've actually the map
Can
drops are
only
way
be
less
used
random
on
now
gloves or
entirely.
boots.
When you kill the last rare in a map, that has a it can affect it. At T1, that was a 100% chance to drop another map of the same tier. And then as you go up the tiers, you can still sustain that using
like-
Waystone
it's
chance. So
okay.
effectively, it's
I
like
don't
it's
think that
de-randomized that a
one's
lot.
that good. This
And
one's
then the
good.
way there are
This one's
several
good as
ways that you can
shit.
get upgrades. So in terms of like going up the tiers.
But
So one of them is
this one's not
that
a
when
big
you kill
deal.
a boss, that's a
It's the other
guaranteed
two.
+1 upgrade. Then of course you can still cube them up, 3-to-1 recipe to go up a level, or you can run it corrupted. And if you're running a corrupted map, then because it drops the same tier, that's like a sort of guaranteed. When I say corrupted, I mean the one that
Varlorb corrupting up plus
corrupting
one.
up +1. That lets
Corrupting up plus
corrupting
one.
up +1. That lets you do the run them the same level as well. So you've kind of got those two options, but it's much more intentional now. It's like if you're going up maps, it's like you're deciding, okay, this is a thing I am doing. You don't just kind of have that like it doesn't just happen. So it's kind of supposed to make the jump. Like, if you're just looking to sustain, you can do that, pretty much guaranteed. And unless you're dying more than the number of times you've got portals, which is obviously the thing now that you can go through portals again, the sustain is going to be a lot easier if you are
let's get
dying.
to me.
But then it's like once you've achieved that, it's like you effectively can sustain forever. Like the cases where people just drop off the bottom and have issues should be like way less common.
Ultimately, it's way less random, way more deterministic. And ultimately, you can, as long as you are able to
Druid,
do
it's
not die all the
happening.
time, you will sustain that tier forever.
Right.
Assuming you can roll enough,
Looks like a lot more forced
high
boss
enough
fighting,
count.
to be honest.
And
You have to
there
fight
is a boss
bosses
here,
to
I'm gonna
increase
go
your
up a tier.
atlas, and then you
go
have
for the boss, you kill
to
the boss, you go up a tier.
fight
And
rogue
if you,
exiles, which are
and
You
basically
sustain that tier
bosses.
forever as long as you can do the difficulty.
Yeah.
It's
And if-
just
More
very
boss.
clean.
And if you're adding more mods, which you do need to be doing to continue to maintain 100%.
He's an evil
ability
dog,
to
but a
go up tiers,
baby dog.
and if you're doing that early, you're getting more maps than what other people are getting, which means you can do the cubing as well. Like it's just kind of like it just much more effectively gets the thing where good players can advance at the right speed, normal players don't fall off the bottom of the curve. It kind of solves all of those issues without. But also you're not going to have just like hordes of low level waystones that you don't need as well. So
That's not my
And,
need.
and just no, it does.
Just
There
so you
are
know.
still. You can get to the highest tiers relatively quickly. You have to prove you're good enough. Your character's good enough. But if you're doing it, you get there, right? It's pretty quick, and you can take it at your own leisure as well, and that's completely fine. So it's not like, oh, we've made it way longer to get to tier 15. Like none of that is really the case. It's just that before you could luck into getting to tier 15 quickly, with some level of biasing the luck, of course. Or you could just be like, what the heck, I'm like constantly running out and have a really bad time.
Right.
And so now it's just way more like
What's the point of
predictable
fracturing
and
orb if you can't scour it?
honestly,
It gives chaos orbs a use.
probably
let's
has
be
way
honest.
more of an impact on the sustain problem, which we didn't really, which we talked about, which is the respawning. I would argue this thing has like way more
This should be
impact
fun.
on map sustain than the respawning does. I mean, obviously if they're paired, then they relate.
you need both
but-
because
yeah.
if
But
because the guaranteed drop comes from the final rare. So if you were just dying, you would never get it. So the respawning is necessary in order to make it so that that's going to happen.
Chaos orbs, they're common if you do,
and obviously as it gets more
whatever it's
difficult,
called.
and you get less portals, you start to get to the point where you're going to run into trouble. But if you're a
Simple
good player, you should
thing.
be able to get up into the top and sustain very well.
Yep.
You mentioned the idea of maps dropping magic by default.
Yes.
Is that something you're still doing, or
I believe it is. But no, actually, wait. But there wasn't a concern about that, which I wanted
With
to talk to you
Alps.
about later.
Okay,
which
well,
is
maybe
the-
maybe not.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later because the concern was raised that I think is valid. So yeah, we were going to make it so that maps drop magic and above, but there might be issues, so we'll discuss that later on.
Well,
non-decided?
Yeah,
undecided. Yeah.
Undecided, yeah.
You
Well,
thought it
you're
was
using
decided.
Alks on
week
maps,
left.
Yeah,
dude.
we've got a week left. It's fine.
Still figuring. It sounds like much more deterministic progression
But
if
yes,
you're
that's
able
the
to
main
prove
thing.
the power that you have.
That's the
Well,
main
it
thing.
just should be, am I strong enough to do this? Yes, I can do it.
Right.
Not, am I lucky enough to do this, and
Yeah.
am I strong enough to do this?
Great.
One of those axes, get out of here.
Love it. So we've got rogue exiles populating the maps now. How common are these guys, especially with unique, since you get their unique guaranteed? I love that. The whole...
It's 1 in 8%, 1 in 12.5 to start with, but of course Atlas tree be Atlas tree. So you can spec into that. And
is there like a map modifier for that or something to guarantee it? Or
there are. I think in this case, this one is the exception, whereas you can get normally guaranteed of the other things. We wanted the exiles to be one that you can't just guarantee all the time.
They don't always have uniques.
Yeah.
But when they do, they're using them. The AI is very cool, like how it works.
I mean, they can have 0, 1, 2. I mean, there's nothing stopping them from having uniques in every slot.
What?
But like, it is.
There's a chance that would be.
It is absurdly rare.
I assume it's just roll.
So you run into it. So basically, if you're playing hardcore, you'll eventually run into an exile that has like
you might have a line of
fraction of a percent for like
exactly.
all of them, but still like 5 or something.
That's
like
Alk
that.
LFG as fuck.
They have quite a lot, like because they're a player. The assumption is that their other gear is also relatively good, so they do generally drop. More biased towards dropping higher tier rares and stuff like that.
Yeah, they're doing that like full set of items because you've killed a player. Cool, I like that. I always love that little thing. And I feel like it's even more important here in PoE2, so that's awesome. But just some of those will be unique, maybe.
We wanted them to be less common than the other content, but like way more exhilarating when you find them.
Yeah.
But of course, again, you can speak into them at the cost of other things. That's your choice.
Cool. Is there going to be some sort of like warning that they're coming, or are you going to know they're in the map ahead of time, or are you just going to get ambushed by these guys?
You won't know they're in the map ahead of time, much like anything random you run into.
But they talk though, and they'll say something before
they monologue before they murder you.
Don't know if I'd go to quite the level of monologue.
When I said some insult you, I'm not joking. Like some do literally insult you, and I believe one of the monks is a pacifist, and he's like, I don't want to do this. Don't force my hand. He'll do it anyway.
I'm not. You're just like running away. He's like, don't make me
don't force my
this.
hand. Yeah, exactly.
Well, look, you can just run away. You know, I really like the here's an occasional spike in difficulty, and again, it's important that they are relatively rare for that reason as well. But I do want it to be when you find one, you are very excited to kill it, and of course, even though they portal out, you still have your number of portals you have. So unless you're running like a full 6 modded Waystone, just get back in there and he's gone, or whatever. You've lost your uniques or non-uniques, whatever they had, but either way, just move on, you know?
I mean, you guys were somewhat forgiving with this. You didn't make it so that they take your items.
Yes, that would have been good.
That's an event at some point.
Don't give me that idea.
That's maybe a 1-week event or something in the future.
It'd be pretty easy to do.
Just take one of your items.
Yeah.
and then you got a nemesis system where you can find them and try and get it back in the future.
You need to add the Tame Rogue Exile gem.
I don't tame's the right word.
Higher exile.
You run up and you can quickly be like, take $1 million gold.
Just give me a little snack. Like, yeah, you would have
What is happening? Does anybody know what's happening?
That would be a fun system.
It actually
Like,
would.
genuinely?
That's actually not a bad
Running up
idea.
and just being like, I'm
It's
here, give
actually
me
out
100,000 gold and I'll be your ally.
I know you've tinkered with the idea of a hireling system at points in the
well,
past, so now you've got your mercenary hireling system, right? Rogue Exiles. They recruit the one with good uniques.
We'll see. We'll see.
Going down a little bit of a rabbit hole here. So we did have some League mechanics come over from Path of Exile 1, 2, Path of Exile 2. You're going to be looking to port more over. Are you going to be doing some unique ones that we haven't seen before?
I mean, we're definitely going to be doing more unique ones that are, that are just completely different outside of what we've done in PoE 1. Absolutely. But I mean, I think that sort of the hope in the long term is that each, as we kind of get, past the end of early access and as we're sort of, just going out, that each time we do something, we're both adding a completely new League mechanic, but also potentially bring something back as well, kind of like as another additional kind of like, here's another fun thing. So that's probably sort of what I imagine will happen. But it kind of really is case by case. Like some things we don't want to bring back, some things we do, and my opinion can change on a dime as well. Like if someone suggests like a new way to interpret something, then I might, actually that is great. So, it honestly, people assume that we have a full plan of literally everything, but it's like in reality, it's very much responsive to what's happening and the actual plan relates to the things that are definitely happening, right? You're talking acts, you're talking classes, you're talking all that stuff is definitely, that's happening. It takes a long time to produce. It sort of happens in the background. You've got outsources, armies of people kind of working on that stuff, and then all the kind of like more incidentally stuff is very much like, oh, you know, let's do something cool, let's just make this, what if we do this, you know, and we don't have a, you know, I don't have a plan for the next, you know, 12 strong boxes. It's just, you know, just come up with an idea and like, you know, that's cool. You know, just a fun little project for a designer to work on.
How do you feel like some of the ones that were, I felt somewhat definitively part of Exile 1 in terms of clear speed, like Breach, for example, have settled into PoE 2? Do you feel like they're
Don't eat that foot.
in a good spot, or were they a good idea to bring over to the game?
Look, I think Breach is, I mean, look, Breach is fun, right? I certainly wouldn't want to remove it. I don't know about, like, I mean, there's probably been some balance changes to it.
I mean, it was spawning too many.
It has.
monsters,
Yeah,
so
it
let's
has.
just say that without a doubt.
It's much better now to PoE 2 standards, yeah.
It's like currently on PoE 2, it's just too out of control. It just needs to chill.
Right.
There was a little bit of an assumption made where it was just like, well, you'll get overwhelmed by monsters and it's more a matter of survive as long as you can. And then, of course, because you get self-propagating herald builds that are just literally can kill anything.
Which, by the
in every
way, heralds
direction.
don't self-propagate anymore.
Just
get that out of the way right now.
The power of the characters kind of
yeah.
distorted the league balance
Yeah.
in a way where it's like we have to, you know, make some changes. So yes,
Yeah.
like it's coming down a bit.
I think we saw
For
that
sure.
one coming. with the
Yeah,
heralds.
well, 100%. I mean, look, there's a lot of things that people will say they saw coming, but it certainly does end up being the case that, like, the patch notes are, you know, so by the way, we aren't releasing them at the end of this live stream. We're going to be releasing them next week, but they are going to feel like a bit of a nerf fest for sure, because, like, there's a lot of things that needed to get,
let's talk balance.
Yeah, all right.
My
Settle in here.
expectations
Yeah.
and anticipations are that this first one is going to be an absolute wrecking ball of chaos and carnage, and see where things land.
Yeah.
But then maybe over time it'll become a sledgehammer, and then like a fine carpenter hammer.
Sure, that definitely should be the case.
As I said earlier, it's like 10,000 things will change this time. 5,000 things will change next time. Then hopefully we can halve it every single time.
People should really be going in with the expectation that, like, nothing they knew about how the game was balanced before is the same. Just forget everything you know. Like, you know, exactly. So basically we'll that kind of just means that, like, you know, everyone who's finding builds, like, do it again. Like you are going to find more shit that is, like, outrageously broken again, but it is not going to be the same shit that was broken before.
Attribute stacking, get out of here.
Yeah, exactly. yeah. So I mean, it's the hope is, though, that yes, you're right. It'll stabilize to the point, I it will take time, but we will get to the point where we no longer have things that are easy to become outrageous with. Right, like the idea is, like, it shouldn't be that you can just slap a few different combination of supports together and then, like, you're just, like, destroying pinnacles in 14 seconds. You know, like, it should be that.
14's a long time.
Yeah, okay, sure. But
you mean 14? That sounds like terrible.
Yeah,
That's not even on PoE.
Yeah, no, but that's what I'm saying is with no items, right? But anyway, so the point is that, like, the first time you fight a pinnacle, it should be a bit of a fight. But then, of course, you do get back to the ability after, you know, like, when, like, kind of like continuing to expand, like, continue to develop your character post pinnacle to the point of being able to annihilate them in seconds.
Yeah.
But it's just like that has to be earned. It can't just be that, like, just a combination of supports that you can get trivially will do that.
Or like a common unique, you know, and then that's it.
Yeah, exactly,
you know,
right? So, but it can be. But if you get Temporalis, you know, it's like, well, now, you know, like, now you've got some shit going on. But it really has to be that, you know, there is an economic factor involved in becoming ridiculous.
Yes.
And so it's when that's not the case that we have a problem that we need to hit shit with a big giant balance sledgehammer.
Yeah. So originally I was going to come in and, like, ask about all the specific things, but we can just assume that, like, it's not going to be chaos. So I like the idea, instead of focusing on kind of like your core, what are you aiming for? What are your goals? What are your metrics? So a number of, like, damage / how fast you kill a pinnacle boss.
Yeah.
That you're aiming for, and then how much players can exceed that, and you're like.
Yeah. So it really should be that you're not, as I said, not killing pinnacle bosses that fast at the moment. Like, a good sort of benchmark for, like, just a guy walks in and like has kind of got something that's, like, not stupid, but also, like, not, like, doing something, you know, like, not crazy. And we kind of imagine that they should have about 50k DPS doing something like that. But at the same time, anything up to 500k DPS is
10 times,
you know, is also okay. And well, that'll take you from taking a 3-minute fight down to, like, a 20-second fight. Like, you know, that's your range of, like, potentially acceptable kind of things going on. But if you're doing above that, then you're in, like, we're probably going to nerf you territory at some point. So that's kind of like the thing. Now, it's worth mentioning that like we've lowered like
Meat
life
creature!
of pinnacle bosses to get that to be
Corgos.
right and sort of things. Like the difference between a T15 boss and a pinnacle boss was just way too much. So that has been that's been sorted out. Like it's things like that we just need to sort of get things in the right place here. So that's a sort of expectation. Now,
Meat
obviously,
creature!
people are going to still find
He's
ways to get 10 million
focused.
DPS somehow, I'm sure, even though we're like nerfing many things. But the thing I think that when we're talking about nerfs and how we want to do, my key thing that I want to try and achieve always is that whenever we're nerfing something, we're only nerfing the thing that was particularly like we're nerfing as little as possible to make it so that the average Joe who works in and just tries to do stuff is not getting affected by it.
Yeah.
Like it should only be the like ridiculously broken synergy thing that kind of like has some way of dealing with it that's actually affected by this. And I'm struggling to think of an example off the top of my head. Maybe you've got some of like, you know, a way that a targeted nerf that kind of like...
I mean, like say lightning conduit, you're not gonna reduce the base damage of it because someone's able to hit for 150 million with one hit from it. Like that comes from the compounding like top end levels of exposure, stacking, conductivity, and more so shock effect, right? So it's more about like take away from the shock effect scaling side of things there and increase the base damage even, you know, like do changes like that where it's like for an average person it's now better, and for someone who is absolutely abusing's not the right word because like they're doing the right thing technically by their standards, that are using all those extreme factors, you know, bring those down a little bit, keep those regulated, and like it'll increase the average user's experience while narrowing, you know, bringing this down and bringing this ideally up a little bit in a lot of cases.
I like the idea that I felt it's somewhat reassuring to hear that there was actually kind of like a math here. Like ultimately you're saying bosses have X amount of hit points. It has 500k hit points, and so we expect players around 50. Yes.
Right.
So that's a clear number. Like we know that. Oh yeah, and we're okay with you killing that 10 times faster than we expect.
Right.
But it's when you get it down to 1 second.
Exactly.
Then we're
10,
like,
10 times is fine, right?
And the problem with the more DPS you have, it is now I have to dodge less.
Yeah.
I get more crowd control.
There's a snowball.
You know, it is. It really is. So you're always going to be incentivized to do that, and you get to this weird thing where now it's just like, okay, well, I think you after a while was like, I haven't actually seen a pinnacle boss fight that lasted more than 2 seconds.
That was really sad to me. Probably the saddest thing about the early access launch to me was seeing the first pinnacle boss fight, and it just like, and it's like, oh, you know, like it's like nobody had to care about the mechanics. The first time
I gave it so many skills.
Exactly, right? Like there were so many skills and all these things, and it's like none of it mattered. It's like that's sad.
Yeah.
So yeah, we ideally was in a situation. Now I hope that doesn't happen again, but honestly, it's probably wishful thinking.
As I said,
yeah.
10,000 things before, there's still going to be
there's still going to be more, and it will
thousand.
happen every time, and people will find stuff,
Look, this again, by the end of early access, I want to say we're going to be in a real fucking good spot with this in a way that is not going to have so much abusive stuff, and getting rid of that whole I feel like I have to play X. Like,
Yes,
it is
that,
very
100%
demoralizing to players when they
Yeah.
played their thing,
Yes.
and all of a sudden something comes out and they're like, oh.
Yeah.
I
And
gotta
so
change over to this.
the way you will know that we're successful is because you get more diversity in classes.
Yeah.
Because it means that there's no longer the thing that everyone has to play because it's easy to be
I mean,
successful.
you definitely saw that where it's like the comments of any build guide. It's like, oh, another Archmage build. Or
Exactly.
oh, it's just Heralds again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like this isn't even a build. This
go-
is just Herald again.
You go look at like what are all crossbow people playing, and crossbows is
Herald.
actually the least used weapon type, and so you specifically start there, and you're like, okay, well here's a bunch of people using these skills: hand of wisdom in action, hand of wisdom in action, hand of wisdom. Okay, well never mind. The crossbows are relevant, right?
Yeah.
Like-
Even without stat stacking, still better.
Yeah,
than the
and
other
it's
one,
like,
so-
okay, well, you know, obviously take some away from there, and then it's like, okay, well, what are you left with? Well, you're still left with probably crossbows are bad, so what do you have to do? And it's like, you know, crossbows now, for example, just a quick change, is like, instead of using one-handed damage mods for added damage, they use two-handed and their base damage. And then all the skills now have a higher growth per level because they scale with other external factors like attack speed less because they have the reload time. So they will be getting more damage per level, whereas before, most skills were very consistently growing per level. So almost every spell would get the same amount of damage per level regardless of everything else it had. And this is how you got things like Spark just being the dominant skill, you know, out of control, because it scales not only that, it scales obviously the number of projectiles kind of out of control, and with projectile and duration and other multiplicative scaling factors, you'll end up with just like, well, of course I'm just going to spark everywhere. And so now it's like, well, spark has these other multiplicative things, so it should get less damage per level. And this was in PoE 1 and was the right answer, and we somehow didn't replicate that exact thing that we did.
Yeah, everything just had the same damage growth.
Yes, we end up with exactly the same. So now every single skill we're looking at it and going, you're going to scale more, you're going to scale less, you're going to scale more on the damage axis because they have other things that scale.
And this just means that, like, when you're asking, well, what skills have changed? Well, the answer is literally all of them.
Yes.
Like, no skill will have the same damage as before. It's like a complete, a complete rebalance of the whole thing.
Every single skill's been nerfed.
Any skill that didn't have a lot of things you could do for it, we'll get more damage.
Yeah, that should be the case. But I mean, even as well, like when we're looking at things like, I sort of mentioned it vaguely before, but like I'm trying to make sure, like we are trying to make sure that like the combos that work early game still work late game, which is kind of another important element of that too.
Yeah. So crossbow's been buffed a lot, and I also heard the other thing that was definitely getting a lot of buffs is Warrior as well.
I mean, we'll see how that looks. I mean,
everything up and everything down.
Yeah.
It's so hard to even like.
Yeah.
It's so hard to have like a cohesive message with the single like this class is better.
Yeah.
Because it's just, I mean, it's easy for mercenary skills or for crossbow skills because I can look at those numbers and just be like, okay, everything's clearly higher.
Yeah.
But then in others, it's like it's too
that's
easy
the thing
to
with Warrior.
say.
Like Warrior was like in many cases there was a lot of things that it was actually not bad.
Yeah.
Like it was good in many ways.
But then it didn't have anything that was outrageously broken like how the other classes did.
Yeah,
in the same
and it
way.
didn't gel with players in many ways as well.
I mean, we've also done balance changes on literally every ascendancy class as well.
Yep.
You know, Pathfinder has like 2 extra notables and some changes. You've got a new notable on Chronomancer. You've got a changes to, like, you know, Chrono was way too much utility stuff. Like, where's just my like good thing, you know? So like, you got like a good
my
thing.
bonk node?
You know, yeah, less niche, more something. And then we've just done that on every single class. We've upped a lot of the undertaken or bad things, and we've downed a lot of the really good, powerful things that were over the top. So
this is why we've gone back to the more conventional patch note cycle of a couple of days beforehand, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, look, absolutely.
If they were ready, you would have them. They're not ready because we're not finished, right? Like, and giving someone half the balance changes doesn't allow them to even make educated decisions on what they're going to play.
So it's just completely pointless at that point.
So we'd rather give you everything all at once instead of just some like here's. You know,
but even once you have the patch notes, like, don't even be under the mistaken illusion that you'll be somehow able to determine what the best builds are from that. Like, this because it's such a big difference.
It's hard to take things into context because you can look at it and say, oh, okay, so like this thing got buffed, but this thing got nerfed. It's like, okay, but you're linking just 2 things. You're not linking all of the other things.
Yeah, exactly. So
we'll try though. We'll try.
Sure. Give it a shot. Do your best.
Look, when the game released, you had to learn everything. You just might have to do it again and again. Every single patch every major patch after this, you know, you're going to have to have less and less of that, and your familiarity will be able to come in and be useful. So at least from a balance perspective at this point, like you know, it's not like we've structurally changed the campaign and all that. So you have still a lot of information and knowledge that is going to help you play the game better anyway on your you know second. I mean, a lot of people maybe made multiple characters, but for a lot of people this might just be their second character.
Yeah.
So they're certainly going to be more equipped. And we've had the races, so you've been able to see how the best people play.
Oh yeah. There's definitely some good tips to learn from there. Oh yeah. That lever skip with the portal, beautiful. It's my favorite. On the slightly bigger picture as well, like life and armor versus energy shields, are you happy with kind of where either of those are at, or what do you kind of hope to achieve with them?
Energy shields certainly, I mean, primarily due to Grim Feast. And like mana stacking being a little bit out of control that's been too strong on more the int side of defense for sure. Expect some pretty drastic changes there. As for armor, well, you know, it's one of those like accuracy kind of things, right? Where it's like dexterity and like, you know, where it's like, honestly, our next point with that is honestly just to get in a room and just be like, all right, let's pretend it didn't exist and we were coming up with the game from scratch, and you know, we're like, okay, we have strength. What would we want the ideal defense to be? And honestly, it might even extend further than that. And really just see, firstly, to make sure we end up, if we don't end up at the same point, make sure we end up as better. Maybe we do end up at the same point and we do just go, okay, here are some other changes that we need to make around physical damage in particular, or something like that. But it's one of those things where at this point we just need to like review it from literally back to basics and see where we end up, because it might be something completely different, but like it might also end up being relatively the same, and maybe it was the better answer. But either way, it's worth the discussion and worth the time, because you know, it's, I wouldn't say we're happy with it, and I wouldn't say we're necessarily like all the way unhappy with it, but it's, yeah, there's something not quite right going on for sure.
You're still fundamentally questioning some of these things and willing to go back to the drawing board on them, which is quite interesting.
Well, 100%.
And this is the time to do it.
We drastically changed how evasion works, and I would say it's for the better, you know, and we should be exploring that with everything, and, you know, so we just need to do that process still. You know, that being said, you know, as we make things more like the shield block better, as we buff the ascendancies or nerf them in
it just sounds like they nerfed everything
arcs,
in the fucking game.
you know, things like armor will become better, but yeah, again, it's not quite right, but I don't have enough information to say, you know, where it will look, what it will look like in the future. So.
Yeah, okay, cool. So let's talk about recovery as well, because that's another big thing. I remember early on ExileCon discussions about the importance of limited recovery in making combat matter, you know, so that you could have situations where you're attritioned, or where like the hit that you took matters for the next hit that you take, and you know, just back up the full. But it's pretty good in boss fights, honestly. I feel like recovery is somewhat limited. That still happens a bit, but certainly in clearing, you have access to tons of recovery with cannibalism and things like that.
It's certainly out of control, and it's a little bit of, again, partly due to the fact that kill speed and clear speed just was way higher than we had expected, and what we balanced around. And because if we were balancing around what people are currently doing with the
Latina furries,
builds, you'd like, you know, you'd have to have effectively every average player and average build just could be completely, it would be useless for them. Now there are ways around that, of course, but part of it is like a lot of the recovery mechanics, like if you're talking about things like on kill and based on damage dealt, it is a rich get richer problem. And so yes, there are cases that are problematic, and then there are just characters that are too strong, and there's a little bit of both going on. I wouldn't say we've targeted any recovery specifically here, really. Like, it's not been a main goal. I'm not going to say that there aren't little bits changed here and there, but it's more about, you know, we've really made sure to just, it's kind of hard to say exactly what we've done, because again, this is probably a thing we're going to have to look at next time, because there are so many changes that it is hard to even like understand how this is going to fit into.
Once
all
the
of that
dust
now.
clears, you might be able to see how recovery's looking.
100%. Like, we're at the point where we do need a little bit of like, all right, we need another round of testing for this, because and again, I stress, it is actually impossible for the amount of changes for us internally to be able to be certain or test all of this.
Yeah, but the vision is still that idea of like more stricter recovery or less powerful recovery than what.
Well, it shouldn't certainly be like, here's one little piece and now it's fully solved, right? Like, having heaps of recovery should be something you can achieve, but it should require a decent amount of investment or high tier itemization, right? Like, for sure, it should be possible. It just shouldn't be trivial.
Yeah. So, and on that note, then, for like vision, what's your vision of what Path of Exile 2 is supposed to be? Because I think some people are still like unsure about, is it supposed to be just kind of more like Path of Exile 1, a faster game, or is it supposed to be a slower game, a much more different thing? Like, this is a hard thing to communicate, but it gets asked a lot, and I feel like people are still a bit unsure.
It's funny though, because like, once again, it's not, I don't view it as just a pure speed question. It's about like, is the combat engaging and fun?
Yeah.
And also, are you getting to the point where you never get to engage with bosses? Like, if you're never, if the first time you fight a boss, you just destroy it without seeing any of its mechanics, then that's a problem. And it doesn't really say anything about the pace of combat. Like, if you look at some of the Huntress stuff we've got there, like, it's incredibly fast-paced when it comes to, like, dashing around and stuff, but you still have to engage with things, and that's the key element for us. So, you know, like, obviously players want to get ridiculously powerful, and we still want to let them get ridiculously powerful. It just has to be earned. It has to be, you know, like, after a certain point. And, like, after you, like, once you have finished your character, once you've sort of done everything, then yeah, you should be just like, you know, like crazy and like beyond the point of any of all reason. It's just that you have to earn it. You have to get there, right? And like that's the power growth thing. That's like it's really hard to sort of just like smoothen that out across the whole game. But like that's ultimately the goal, right? You have to kind of get to the point of like that. You constantly feel you're getting stronger. You always feel like the next like, oh, I got this, and now I'm better, and now I'm better, and now I'm better, and you keep on going. And you have to scale that all the way to the end. Because the moment that you get to the point where you're just trivializing everything too early, it's like, well, the rest of the game just becomes boring after that point, right? It has to be that there's the level of that you.
People are gonna really hate hearing
and so
him say
kind of based
that.
on that earlier discussions about like damage and boss time to kill and things like that. It sounds like the time
When you're OP, the game is boring. That's kind of like what he said.
Players can start to cheat that.
When you're OP, you're boring. The game's boring. People are not gonna like that.
Well, you should feel that way multiple times throughout the game. But then later you still then get to a new level of challenge that still requires you to engage again. Like if we're doing our job correctly, it's like you reach a point of feeling like you're a god, and then you're like, oh shit, there's new godlike shit above me that then makes me have to then do the exactly right. So like, you have to keep on with that train. And it's actually really hard to take you back from feeling like, oh, I'm all powerful back down to like I'm feeling, and so you have to kind of get that in there as you go
want that
up.
Dragon Ball anime arc.
Yeah, for sure, right?
There's always a new level of Super Saiyan after the previous one.
Exactly, right? That's what you have to be able to do. And so yeah, it's smoothly taking up that power level curve, all the way to the end.
Yeah, so I think like when it comes down to things like movement speed when clearing, it's about like if you're able to just ignore everything.
Yeah, exactly. If you're able to ignore everything, then you obviously you will move really fast. If you're not able to ignore everything, suddenly your clear speed is like not as big of a thing. So long as there are still things that are challenging you, as long as you reach the next tier and like everything's harder again, then you're good.
I feel like a point of the difficulty here between the communication of this with you guys and some of the people in the community is that I feel like you're not really looking at it in terms of PoE 1 versus 2. You're just trying to answer that question specifically. Yeah. So it's not really about like it being like PoE 1 or 2.
Exactly, right? It's just about making the combat good.
It's either the combat is fun or
yeah.
And there's a sort of spectrum of stuff there, but I would say that you want to be able to engage with the boss. You want to be able to fight its mechanics and do its skills, and you want to feel like you can overcome those over time and get better. And you want to engage with monsters, and yeah, there's probably some people who are like, no, I don't. I want to just press a button and loot drops on the ground, and I don't have to look or do anything. And
well, so that's an interesting point. Is this let's say the quote unquote mythical average build is are they able to switch their brain off and watch Netflix on a second monitor? Only if they're doing like maps 3 levels under what they should be doing or something, or should that be able to happen at kind of like
once you're at your tier of godhood?
Yeah, but I actually want to address that because like okay, so I'm watching. Well, okay, right now I'm watching Deep Space Nine, funnily enough, but I'm watching Deep Space Nine as I'm playing, as I'm testing the game, right? It's like you develop a muscle memory, and that muscle memory can include using multiple skills and doing like multiple things, and that's still to me more engaging than just holding down a button, you know?
So you're saying this like watching things on the secondary thing isn't about the game being easy; it's just a skill issue. You need to get
I wouldn't say that. I'm just saying that your muscle memory can develop from more than just using a single skill. You just and we've always sort of said that there's this thing where like, okay, sometimes you pause the show, right? Sometimes that happens because you come to a thing that's
this is an update to the classic, second monitor.
I love
Netflix
how this friggin' watching something on the second screen has become such a fundamental part
it's just,
of
the community's just grabbed it and it's become a thing forever. But it's been updated now. Like this is the update. You want them to have to pause sometimes.
It was a philosophy set for a different
because I feel like I've said that 10 years ago about how like sometimes you get the spike in difficulty.
It'll haunt
you
forever.
Like now you have to do this. But yeah, I guess that turns into pause the video at this point. But yeah, but look, if I play this way as well, right? Like it's not like I'm, like once you get to a certain point, it's like obviously you're going to want to, the music, you've heard it lots of times, like you want to have something else going on. That's fine. But I still think that there needs to be the ability to have to have something engaging from time to time that you have to deal with. So. Yeah.
It's always been a bit of a silly thing because you've got so much element of choose your own difficulty in Path of Exile, right? Like
exactly.
Do harder maps, do easy maps.
But look, people always want to choose the hardest stuff, right? So therefore, that's what they're judging it against.
That's true.
So that's why you do need a level of economic gating to make it so that like you can't go too far with difficulty without without having to prove the economic stuff on some level. So
dying and losing the map.
Exactly, you're dying and losing the map. You have to think. Like all that map sustain stuff is so tricky for that reason. Like getting that exactly right.
Well, it sounds like some big advancements in that regards. So I've got some kind of random tail questions here. Are you planning in the future on? I don't think it's probably happening this time around, but on changing campaign pacing at all? Like, I feel like some of the zones are probably a bit too large, a bit too empty.
Gifted subs.
I mean, that's more about adding more stuff to them than it is about making them smaller.
Yeah.
Like, there's still a lot more events in campaign that we haven't added yet that still need doing. There's like big lists of things that we never.
I saw they had an Act 4 boss.
Getting to those and
the argument there, which I do
5.
believe in, is an area
Act
should
5
be able
boss
to be
in
large.
their
If it has
preview.
enough interesting
Anybody else
things.
notice
The
that?
frequency of interesting things is high or
I mean,
consistent.
yeah, like the
map
size of
boss,
an area
they
is
should.
completely right. Like imagine there were no load screens. You just walk from place to place.
Yep.
Like you wouldn't be thinking about area size exactly. It's just is the density of interest
Grandma
enough?
Dirtle.
You know, like the fact that there happens to be a load screen between one place and the other. Is
Yeah,
not
the long is directly
Flinduglius.
proportional to interest.
Exactly right. So yeah, so to me,
one thing we do need to obviously do, and we have done in some areas, is just making sure that if it is a large area,
Meat
it's not just
creature!
interesting things to find as well. It's also make sure there's enough
Meat
variety.
creature!
It's not just so repetitive. Of, like,
Meat creature!
Yeah, where you've got
What kind of
like,
a creature?
almost different biomes.
Meat
there are
creature!
some where I would say the area is large enough, or
Meat
you're in there long
creature!
enough such that there isn't enough monster variants, and so it just gets a bit repetitive.
But yeah, it's completely true that anytime someone says, "Oh, this area is too large," I'm like, "Well, okay, so what monsters are we changing? What events are we adding? That kind of stuff, right? Because that's the way that you change it around. Like there are areas that are very large that no one complains about because they're stuff.
They got a
fine.
lot-
The
they got a
fun
lot of
things
Also,
and
like,
stuff.
there are good- I don't know how
commander!
many, people are gonna play this, or how many people stop playing before 011, but like, it's worth noting again, like areas have like the fast travel thing now as well
Yeah.
to
Certainly a big
between
help.
checkpoints,
Fucking
and
tired, dude.
there's some of that stuff which I'm hoping again when people start playing from scratch they get to see a lot of the improvements we did before as well, and see how they feel about
And
it
it's
again.
worth mentioning through campaign, we've got both the wisps and there's also strong boxes as well through campaign. Like they feel a little bit different. There's just as you play through, you're certainly finding some things you wouldn't have
Shrines
done.
soon.
couple more
soon.
ones.
Yeah.
The what's that?
Shrines.
Oh,
We'll have them actually in the campaign soon.
Cool.
I think art wasn't quite done right, or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it might be a bit weird. The ones in the end game, it works a little bit.
I knew
better
this guy, his name was
narratively, but
Gang
using
Signs,
that
and he
asset
was a
throughout the
pussy
campaign, it will
ass
feel real
bitch. He would
random.
always
So,
wrap his
it's
lips
just a matter
on
of, as
nest.
soon as the art's done,
What?
we'll be chucking those in as well.
Oh, great. So that could be after release.
It'll certainly be shortly after.
But also like every time we do like that we're expecting people to play through
We
again, like,
know.
probably tweak like which content
We
spawns in different
know.
areas and just like fiddle around a bit so that then you play it just feels a bit fresh and things going on there.
Yeah, you kind of got me there. I feel like
We
each
know.
of the zones I'm trying to think of that like feel like they're way too big is like they're also just coincidentally empty.
Yes.
So I guess that is maybe
Well,
perhaps more the
it's
issue.
it's the exact same problem happens in maps, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we talked about that. Like the
exact
boring
same
empty
Yeah.
map.
When
problem.
the maps when people say the map's too big, just not.
I think
it's
I
content.
think I phrased it to Jonathan yesterday when we were talking about it as every screen looks the same as every other screen. It wouldn't matter
this
where
is
I'm
the-
standing in the map. It would look.
I think the map you were talking about was Step.
Yeah,
like
that
we were
was-
looking at Step and being like, okay, well, what's actually like.
It's a big square.
Yeah, and there's nothing going on in it. And even if there was stuff going on, I mean, like it's funny because like it took us a little while to even come to an understanding of like what needed to change there. Because I'm sort of saying like, okay, well, like and it's very random. So it's like, do you find the cold plains in D2 as to be a boring area because it's ultimately kind of similar? But the answer is, well, there's buildings sometimes, and you get like, there's just like there's just a little more going on in that way. So like we need to make sure that maps feel that way too. When we're doing them.
There has been a few pervasive crashes and issues like that.
Oh
So
god,
how's
yes.
that
Well, I'll tell you what, the entire engine team have basically been entirely focused on that for 3 months, and it's been horrible because. So I mean, it's kind of a long story, and I don't know if I should go into all of it, but ultimately, the issue is that on NVIDIA cards, the remaining issue at least is that on NVIDIA cards, if you're using a driver that's bigger than I think 560 point something, like basically after that point the game crashes, and if you install an older driver than that, it doesn't. If the crash happens in the driver in the GPU, NVIDIA is just like not really much help, and so it's like just trying to nail down what even caused it. It's just so hard when it's like, and the thing that sucks about it is like it won't reproduce on anywhere except production and alpha, and like the moment you look at it, like we can't reproduce it anymore, and yet for some people it happens all the time, and it's just like it's so horrible. And like what we've done, we actually come up with a somewhat ridiculous idea that was now implementing, which we're going into 020 with, by the way, which is that, and this will seem stupid, but like, how about we just don't crash? Which
you tell me about this.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, what we do is what we're now changing it to is that if the GPU driver crashes, what we do is we create a new device and then upload all the textures to that. The game is paused while this is happening, and then it unpauses, and then the game keeps going. And so that is what we're doing to solve this crash. And it's like it's kind of ridiculous that this has to be the solution, because like it's just mysteriously in the NVIDIA driver we have and we have tried to find a workaround for this. It is just like so difficult. So that in 020 that's what will happen. And so
while we're here, like, do the players have a workaround? Like,
well, you can install the driver earlier than.
Sure. What about Vulkan? Does that matter?
Yes. But no, not entirely. It does still happen in Vulkan, but it's a bit unclear about that particular thing, about whether or not that's less. But
I figured it might be
no,
a good
it is in the driver. But I mean, yeah, like if you install an older driver, it will go away.
So all of this time, when people have been saying the classic armchair developer meme, it was like, why don't you just add a bit of code that says if crash equals false?
Yeah, well, something like that. Basically do the engineering to allow us to just recreate the entire GPU context, and then there you go, and then don't crash, and that is actually the solution we're now going with. But it's like the thing is, the other one that sucked though was that stupid damn full system freeze, because I'll tell you what, if the entire system freezes, there is just nothing you can do to find out what the hell caused it, because there's no like report. Crash report, there's no logging, there's no literally nothing, right? And it's like that happened that happened when the Windows November H2 update shipped, and then things just started mysteriously freezing. And my God, that was hard to track down. And you ask Microsoft about it, look into it, and it's like nothing happens. It's like, Jesus Christ, guys, it's so annoying.
I can feel your frustration.
Yes,
is palpable.
It's incredibly frustrating, because it's like we want nothing better than to fix this shit. So that one was fixed. There was some spin lock implementation that I don't have any understanding of why it causes this to happen, but we tweaked it a bit, and now it doesn't happen anymore. And it's like there's no rational reason why this should cause the operating system to freeze. And it's like there's not even a good answer at the end. There's not even here's what was wrong. It's just like this random particular sequence of operations being done causes your entire system to freeze for no reason after this Windows update. And it's like, well, cool. What do you do about that? It's just terrible. And so yeah, that one sucked. But basically now, I mean, it's funny because we've fixed so many crashes that weren't the crash. So general stability, apart from that crash, is incredibly good now.
99% down, maybe probably 99.99%.
And it's like, the thing is, we'll fix a crash and we'll be like, oh, maybe this is the crash, and then it fixes 2% of crashes, and you're like, well, that wasn't the crash, but at least it looks good to fix, right? It's so annoying. But as I said, we have a workaround now.
That's good.
That will basically recreate the graphics device if
so you might get a pause, and then
you'll get a pause for 3 seconds, and then roughly depending on hardware, and then it will continue, and the game will pause at the.
I obviously just make it clear we don't want it to remain like that. Obviously.
Yes. Obviously, we'll still try and fix it, but at least it means you're not crashing, and you're certainly not freezing anymore. That's sorted out. And then we found another one recently, which was like, okay, so this is another stupid one, right? So anyway, so there's that whole Intel. 14th generation Intel CPUs where there's some freaking voltage regulation problem that causes CPUs to break in a certain way.
About crashes.
And if that happens, then the thing that will break is that the decompressor will it'll decompress something and one bit of it will be wrong.
I scared your dog. Tell your dog I said this.
And then it fails. Slaughterhouse is my calculation. So the fix stuff like that. It is our problem. We have to fix it because it's affecting real users. But the solution to stuff like that, is just so annoying to find. And so yeah. Anyway,
it sounds like you've improved a lot of the unrelated crashes, and you've come up with a good workaround at least.
Yeah,
now
at least
for that
hopefully.
One.
But yeah,
so that sounds like a massive improvement. But I also just think your obvious
stuff.
frustration is very validating for people who have been frustrated with this.
Exactly. But the thing that's the most annoying about it is that all these the engine team who are spending time fixing this, they're not able to spend time working on performance issues, which is something else that we need to be obviously improving over time. So there's been a few performance improvements, but like not nearly the number we would have had if we had all 7 of those people like working on performance improvements.
Yeah,
so that's been the most frustrating thing about it.
Crashes first.
Yeah, 100%. But it's like when they're kind of
We have been chipping away at some decent ones though.
Yeah,
like,
no, we have. Yeah,
we
those
got some pretty good.
So everybody is positive, right?
Yeah, I mean, there was that ice one that was really bad.
Looks good, right?
There's
Really
things
good.
like so. Like the worst offenders, we're certainly fixing. But and like I have no doubt by the time we get each time we do a new release, it'll be even better.
Yep.
But by the time we get a full release, I'm sure it'll be very good.
And I mean, speaking of, I know it's like tangential sort of as well. Obviously, we had a lot of woes around the release, but we've done a whole lot of back-end engineering work to make it.
Yes.
Launch
Yes. So the launch should go smoother as far as like
I mean, it was pretty good.
Stuff. It was.
Wow, it still was 5 hours of not good.
Yeah, but like 5 hours compared
No.
to
This time,
days.
I mean, look,
I'm standard.
I'm tempting fate here, but like we've made significant improvements to the ability for the realm to handle stuff. So
5 minutes this time.
well, I mean, we'll see, right? You never know what's going to go
You
wrong.
always
But
sometimes
it should be
get
much
caught
better.
out by something random.
Yeah.
So.
It should be much better this time.
Yeah.
I hope you get enough players to stress your theory.
Yeah.
Think about this.
That's a good thing to aim for.
Think about
We'll
it.
just run up with a couple of the random kind of chat questions before we finish up today.
Think about it.
Any possibility of Ascendancy respecs? Is that something you've considered, especially with all the changes going on?
We're sort of not in love with it. It's just one of those things where like I feel like it's key to the identity of the character, and like respecing like the journey of the character, like it does get pretty significant.
Maybe they buff
compromised
Titan
if
more.
you,
Maybe
if
he's
you
way
go
better
after
than
that.
this guy.
But I know Mark is especially
Think
strong.
about this
strong.
ascendancy being a summoner.
I mean,
Think about this
the answer's gonna
ascendancy
be
on
the exact
anything.
same as last time, which is like.
I'm gonna
I
hit
don't
the
know
fucking friends
exactly
list
or I don't
day,
know how to articulate
like day
exactly why I
one.
feel
It's
so
gonna be like a
strongly
bunch of
about
random
this,
shit, and then I'm
so
opening up my
many
friends list day
members
4, and it's
of,
just gonna be
like,
this guy. That's what
Again,
I
it's just
predict.
that your choices should matter.
Just everybody top to
and,
bottom is this guy.
You know, it's obviously something that I was okay with in PoE 1, and so there is probably a world where I will be okay, but there's got to be some level of work involved to achieve it that isn't to just pay a little bit of gold and then you're done or whatever. Like, I want to find a way to do it, and we're going to do it in a way that is like grounded
That's
and
interesting idea.
and difficult to well, not I wouldn't say difficult, but like requires some actual work to do. So
Fire
that would be the
spell on
comment
hit
willing
with
to explore, which
Injolnir.
I have been thinking about recently because I know every single time we come to an expansion, it's going to
You could definitely do
so.
something
Trial
with that
of
for
respect.
sure. That's like some Jung Round
something.
curse
Yeah,
shit.
there'll be something where your
in
character
Injolnir,
has
though,
to
but just by
undergo some
itself.
sort of challenge or something to do it. And I know you could argue, well, doing the trial is that, and you're
Gotta
not
make some
entirely wrong, but
sacrifices.
something a bit more.
I'm
sure-
2,000 enemies.
I'm sure we'll have a conclusive decision, or at least a level of articulation, one way or the other,
Core
by the end of
Ghost
early
is
access.
an evil dog.
Alright.
But
Evil
for
bites
now,
what
yeah,
he
it's just going to take me a bit
doesn't
more time to
like.
figure out what I want to do.
Core
there.
Ghost is an evil dog.
Is dynamic switching
He
between
is
keyboard and
now gonna
mouse
bite
and controller
what he
coming
doesn't
along?
like.
It's not
Pum,
on 0.2.0,
pum.
but it will be coming.
It's on its way.
Yes, so
Work-
like,
being
and
worked
I'm
on.
really hoping by 0.3.0, like we should be able to get that. That is a very key feature.
It seems like it's going to be hard to loot juiced maps with only one portal. Oh no, well, this question has already been answered. Well, actually no, because there's
No,
still one
this-
portal.
No, this is a concern,
that's
and we
true,
have to do
it's
something
juice,
about
so
it.
we have to
Yes,
figure
we
it
have
out,
to figure it out.
My
Yeah.
bad,
So
yeah.
in the next week, we
Juice.
will actually be looking into this one.
There's a few problems around
point.
it
Yeah.
still, that other things to come up, like
Yep.
you know, you also don't want it to be that if you did use your one portal, because it's your portal that's used, not everyone's portal that's used. Because when it says
That's actually
one
a good point.
portal,
Yeah, it's a good
that's
point we
one
didn't
portal
I think we
for
mentioned
up
that.
to 6 players.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when it's 6 portals, it's 6 portals for up to 6 players, which means technically it's 36 entries and exits out of the map, right? And like that changes things in a way where it's like when it's down to 1, it's like you don't want it to be that, oh, I failed the map. Quick, Ziggy, come join my party, get in here and finish it for me. You know, you don't want to kind of have that style of play happening. So there is still some things we need to figure out with this because it's going to promote some what I would probably classify as degenerate behavior, as well as the fact that you're probably like, oh, my inventory's full, zone out. Oh, what the? Okay, sweet. And sure, you can add a warning, but I don't know if even restricting it to just one inventory of loot like that is good, right? I would personally prefer that it's one death, not one, entry. So there's some stuff we need to figure out, but again, Jonathan.
That's interesting, yeah, because the death seems like the important part. So as long as there's not like a way to cheat it, it seems like almost like you'd want to allow people to come and go as they please until they die, right?
Yep. Which is a a potential solution. But again, can't say for sure. But yeah, 100%. That person is right for bringing that up, and it is on our radar for this coming week to have, or weekend as well, to have a solution for.
Yeah. So with this new league not having a specific like league mechanic, is it still a challenge league? Does it still have challenges?
It's actually
no. There's no achievements or challenges yet.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure we weren't going to do that for a little bit yet.
There's not really. Maybe later in early access, but for now, not really.
Yeah.
We're just trying to keep it more about the game and the mechanics, and less about
make the game first.
The achievements, and the achievements will certainly, an achievement system and stuff like that will certainly be there with the full release, and we'll reintegrate all of that at the time.
Is there any plans for stash tab expansions, like for example rune storage?
Oh, 100%. Right now I'm actually trying to at least add the affinity without adding a custom tab. Those two things appeared from the implementation standpoint, so I want to try and divorce them so we can have affinities without it.
We wanted to get those in this patch, but unfortunately they just didn't quite make it. I mean, it's actually quite likely to come in sometime, like in a point release after, like within the 020.
As soon as the patch is out and stable and we're on top of things, it's going to be like, all right, we need to get all those like UX or quality of life things that we blatantly missed out on.
I think
for example, like being able to add bookmarks to your atlas and write the name.
That is one
that
that
is something
we designed some stuff for it. We just haven't got it yet.
I want to say it's like 80% implemented right now.
Yeah. So it'll be soon as we can. We'll get that in there.
All right, that is excellent. And on that note, we'll wrap things up today. Thank you so much, Jonathan. Thank you so much, Mark.
Thank you very much for coming.
And thank everyone
for
watching.
Thanks for having me here. Great time. Thank you very much, everyone. And I'm Ziggy D, and thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
See you.
My sound back to advanced audio properties, better word, minus that. Is it back to normal? World of Warcraft TBC. Cool. Now what? 7 days. Few days for patch notes. Sounds like they changed everything. Like, literally everything. Imagine, like, how mad some people still are when they basically changed everything in the entire game. Because that did happen. Recruit thanks, dude. 2-year beta, yeah. Probably. Corgo is an evil dog. He's gonna bite. Oh, what he doesn't like, that's you. That's you. Corgos, he's the evil dog. He's gonna bite what he does not like. That's you. Why is that so blurry? Blurry boys. Blurry boys.
Cool down now, it'll take a while. While I wait, it's no bad of exile. Generators, spinners don't have me. Why by default, POE's free? Bullshit and abomination to the slaughterhouse is my calculation. D4's bad, he can tempt this. If you loving it, get the hell out of Memphis.
He's evil. Big booty Latina furries. Just play this guy. Easy game. Except everybody's gonna do no damage. It'll be epic. Bada bum 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 bum. I'm gonna play this. Play the Lich. Bada bum 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 bum. Bada bum bum bada bum. Now what? I'm playing Warrior first, like 98%. Login. Or Warrior. Names 98% chance I'm playing Warrior first. Huntress. Nope. Bada bada bum bum bada bum. I think the Huntress is gonna chain feed. That's what I think. You're gonna like type no way. That's basically the Huntress experience. I'm pretty like I'll bet money on it. That's gonna be the Huntress experience. Day 1 Huntress POV. Day every single day Huntress POV is that. Bum 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 bum. I ain't falling for that shit, bait. That's some bait shit. That's some bait shit. This guy's gonna get nerfed, right? There's no way they're okay with this. Maybe they look at this and say it's not that good because you can't scale up a body armor's armor. Maybe that's maybe that's what they think. I don't think it's a big deal. Yeah, they said evasion's nerfed, but they didn't give any specifics. They said evasion is reworked, kinda, or something. I'm not exactly sure what they did. They said something that was kind of off. And then they said energy shield is basically massively nerfed. Do. This ascendancy is really strong too, though. You know that +1 charm slot's huge, dude. +1 charm. A massive nose is a giant nose, and a giant nose is a massive nose. And a massive nose is a giant nose. And a giant nose is a massive nose. 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 Giant nose. What does ritual sacrifice do? Is it good? You like eat a corpse or something, right? Do. Bada bada bum bum bada bum. Hello, blue boy bitch. Who's the most negative person who is watching it? Who wins the prize? Who is this guy? You? Quinn? I feel like Quinn was probably pogging off. Quinn's pretty optimistic, honestly. Was Quinn actually negative? Oh, because he wants Druid? I guess.
The Druid. No Druid. Oh, you're gonna poop your pants because no Druid. No Druid. No Druid. No poo-poo Druid.
Think about people being mad, but like, why are you mad after watching that? Genuinely, why are you mad? Think about it. What did you want? What did you want? What did you expect? You know what I mean? Like, actually think about it for a second. A bunch of stuff. They basically full swept the entire game and added stuff and redid stuff. right? Like a lot of stuff. Items, skill gems, support gems, ascendancies, existing ascendancies, rebalance of the entire game, new in-game content, new mechanics, and then you're still gonna be mad. Maybe you just don't like the game, right? Like what were you looking for then? Right? It was already doomed from the start for you. If you watched that and you just weren't, you know, it didn't click with you at all. You just didn't like, you know what I mean? Do. No reset, biggest letdown? There is a reset. What? What do you mean? You don't know how these games work? I don't think it's a troll. I think it's just a person who doesn't play these games. There's a reset. What if Ingenuity now gives you +1 ring slot? That'd be kind of cool. Bum, 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 bum. It's a Corgo baby. He's a baby Corgo dog. He's an evil dog of death. Evil dog of death. Death. Hold on. What's this? A true baby at that. You guys hear something? But I think that is that cursed and as a perspective. Like if you weren't happy with watching what you just saw there, and it really made you mad, then what were you expecting, right? Because they kind of covered everything. I guess a guy who really just wanted the druid maybe, but like what else? Tower stuff? I don't know. I haven't tried it. It's probably better. I mean, Ben did this to himself, to be fair. He has to foster that.
Announcement. Is it worth watching?
He's become a beacon for that, you know? It's not even that he's a hater, necessarily. It's just people have their outlet. People who want to be a hater have their outlet, because he took that.
Meek creature!
He wanted to put himself there. So all the people who do want to hate are going to go there now. Corgos. Palsteron's chat, are they flaming the game as well? What do they want? I think I'm pretty on the money. Let's see on patch notes though. It's a Corgo baby. It's a Corgo baby. Ziz isn't mad. He's pretty optimistic generally. Picture this. The music. Are you scared? A true baby. Rogue Exiles were pretty scary when they first came out. Then they, you know, just became fodder in PoE 1, but... we'll see. I'm not playing Last Epoch on launch at all. I'm just playing PoE 2. I'll be playing PoE 2, and then I think I have one sponsored Torchlight stream. That's in like a couple weeks, though. That'll just be that stream, and then back to PoE 2 probably. I don't think I'm playing Last Epoch at all, honestly. Maybe if I'm really bored, and there's nothing to do, like, say 2 months from now, like, literally 2 months from now, and I'm not doing fuck all, then maybe. But it's a Corgo, baby. It's a Corgo, baby. It's a Corgo, baby. Dude, you get so much regen on this guy now. 5% regen so much. I think 5% more. I think 5% regen is more than you can get on the tree. 5% regen is more than you get on the tree. I'm just saying. Do 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 do. There's so many new support gems too. What is he? Corgus is truly an evil dog of death. Bum ba da bum. Spears are the only new weapon, which is a little concerning, honestly. They're probably more worried about, like, problems in the game, though, than adding content. Axes, swords, flails, daggers, off the top of my head. Claws. Did they do anything about mace speed? Don't know. Blue boy. Zaki, where you at? Show yourself, boy. Nerf this. It's too good. Or let me be OP, I guess. Do-do-do. They said they reworked other ascendancies and added stuff on some, so maybe some of the other ascendancies look cool too. No, you get 4 points. Theoretically, you could click 8 of these if you wanted to. That's overkill, you don't need to, but you could. Ploop, 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 it's time to use your mace. Ploop, 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 it's time to use your mace. Ploop's gonna log in and play a fucking summoner on this, I'm calling it now. He's gonna be like, my minions, oh, look at me go. I mean, resistances are really, really hard to get in the game, which makes this node actually insane. Because everybody, how much minus res do you have in the game total? I don't remember exactly how much. It's minus, is it only minus 30? For some reason I thought it was more than minus 30. Regardless, you're gonna get over 100 res from this. Korgos is so evil. Yeah, I don't remember because they did that patch that did something with resistance. I don't fucking remember, honestly. I just remember there was a patch midway through that they did something with the resist. I forget. I mean, this ascendancy, basically, you don't even need resist on your gear. You need just a tiny, tiny, tiny bit. If you want it to go that way. This guy's OP as fuck. He's insane. So much versatility, too. And Korgo, evil dog. Are you going to choose him or not? Well, getting resistances is really good in the current game because it lets you use more unique items. If you think about like a lot of your itemization on a lot of builds in PoE 2, you stop putting more items because you need rare items. You need some amount of rare items on your character. And it's mostly for resistances. Like, you stop putting more unique items on builds, which are really strong in PoE 2, because you run out of the resistances. I just farted liquid. That's a 7-day timeout. Korgo is evil. Yeah, this guy's OP. Blatantly, just absolutely OP. Probably not okay OP. Like, to the point that I would play this 100%, and it probably needs toned down. Korgo. Hey, but if they want, you know, OP guy, sure, there he is. OP guy. Don't worry, I get everything nerfed. They nerfed me, like, 8 times. In 0.1 or whatever the fuck. Just by watching. Evil dog. No, they should. It's early access game. Who cares? Do what they want to do. The things that they need to do. Yeah, I'm worried Javazon Huntress is going to be way too squishy because HP pool is going to be so small. You're going to be running around with like block and evasion. That's awesome. But like you're going to have like 2000 HP and then you have to like melee stuff, right? You have to melee stuff with 2000 HP. Does that really seem, you know what I mean? That sounds like evil. Like you're going to be running around meleeing stuff with 2000 HP. Which means if you put 1 damage mod on your map, you're going to get 1 shot. Like if I were to quantify the survivability of this, right? Versus the survivability of this. This guy's literally not even exaggerating 10 times tankier. Like, if Huntress has 2,000 HP, this guy effectively has 20,000 in comparison. It's literally 10 times tankier. It's not even exaggerating. Right? Like, this is like glass. This guy is, I'm AFK. I don't care. Korgos is evil. He's so broken. Runes on the chest? Yeah, probably. The only requirement here, it says a normal body armor, which means it can't be magic rare or unique. Which means it can still be corrupted. It can still be corrupted, and it can still have sockets. Double corrupted. You know, chest thing. Korgos is evil. There are some really strong unique chests, though, in the game, but, I mean, I don't think it matters. Korgo is evil. Double corrupt is an FX. Yeah, I think you're right, actually. True. But yeah, corrupted chest still. 3 sockets or whatever. Probably 3 sockets. I don't know. I don't remember. I think it was like max res implicit, but you probably don't need that on this character. Spirit implicit. I don't remember. Is there even a good place that has all the like corrupted affixes on items from Vault Orbs? This work with Bringer of Rain? Yeah, it would. That item should be in the game now with this patch. It might not. In PoE 1 it would work. There might be a difference in PoE 2, I don't know. A true baby at that. A true baby. True and baby. Now what? I guess I can continue Warrior Act 1, 2, 6, whatever. I'll probably do some later, not today though. Because I'm like 98% sure I'm just playing Warrior. How many? It's 1 point per. One point per. So you could do like, I don't know, this max res thing and then 4 nodes. Or you could do all 8 if you're cursed. Like all 8 is genuinely probably pretty good. And Timber Weapon might actually be pretty honest, like honestly pretty good to take. Korgos is an evil dog. But all 8 for like leveling through campaign is pretty good. I mean, this is like too good not to take, to be fair. Like 2 and then 6. Or 2 then 4 to get Uber. Now we wait 1 week. Timber Weapon, they showed a little bit of it. It made like kind of like a Herald of Ash explosion when he was hitting stuff. Korgos E. Just way too much max hit and EHP for one ascendancy. But no one ascendancy should have that much max hit. Just from ascendancy nodes. It's too good. He's OP, man. He's OP. He makes every other ascendancy in the game look like shit. Like, actually. The nodes on the chest, just whatever you need. They're all good. They all have use. You probably never run cold or lightning res unless it's axe, but you know, everything else is useful. Ugh. OP. The fact that this is still 20% energy shield probably means the energy shield nodes on the tree are probably still roughly the same, if not the exact same, because 20% as a filler node probably means it's equivalent to what's on the tree. So there's probably still a lot of ES percentage on the tree. It's just Grimfeast, I'm pretty sure, is deleted. It's Corgo. He's evil. It's Corgo. He's evil. What does Ritual Sacrifice do? They shed that, right? Does anybody know what this did? It was like you like eat a corpse, right? Like the spirit animal. One headhunter buff. Yeah, it's kind of shit. Like, I don't know what you use your points on. Like, getting this, like, +1 ring and amulet thing is really good for 4 points, but then what do you do with your other 4 points? Because I literally hit every other single other node. Charms? Like, what is this? Consume mana? No, I'm not doing that. I guess you do just take the thing. The recovery's like okay, but you probably don't have much base recovery. 3% move speed. What's Blood Boil boss in World of Warcraft? Burning Crusade. You're welcome. This looked really dumb. The predatory instincts. Did you see that when they were looking at that? Like, what the fuck was that? Like, just certain parts of, like, random parts of the monster's HP bar, they take more damage? I don't, like, it's just kind of weird. Press 1 to permaban Kurosaki. Press 1 to permaban Kurosaki. It's lights out for you. It's lights out for you. Here we go. It's time to ban Kurosaki. It's time to initiate the ban. It's time to ban Kurosaki. It's time to ban Kurosaki now. Ban Kurosaki. Ban Kurosaki now. It's time to ban him. Goodbye, Kurosaki time. You guys are dumb. What do we do? What do we do? Corgo. Evil. Evil. Corgos is evil dog. Evil dog is the Corgo dog. I can't do anything until I have patch notes. I know this guy's broken as fuck if he actually ships. Even if he's a little bit nerfed, he's still broken as fuck. If this guy ships out in this form, it's actually just stupid. But even if he gets a little bit of nerf, he's still OP. Corgos is evil dog. Evil is Corgo dog. Yeah, this guy's OP. OP as fuck. Look at him, he's like, hello, blue boy, bitch. I see you. Timber Weapon actually might be sick for map clearing also, honestly. It's possible. Think about this, Philandra Scarlet. A true baby. A true baby. Wake him, mortal, and you shall perish. After that, he went around and ate the guy. He killed him. Big nose. Big nose. Big nose. Your blue boar. Boop. I need a shower. And more juice. Mandatory fun. Thanks, dude, for the sub. I think I'm just gonna like practice some warrior runs for the next couple days, stalling until patch notes. De-rust a bit anyway. Your blue boar. Yeah, true.
Meek creature!
They don't tell us what this note is. I'm assuming it's also 15 fire res. It's so much fire res, dude. Like, what is this? This guy's sick. He's OP as fuck. A true baby. This game is not releasing till 2027. Maybe I play hard. Do I play hardcore trade? Or SSF? SSF is more stalling. HC, SSF, HC trade. Don't know. Oh, I might start SSF then migrate. Core Ghost is evil dog. Evil dog is the core go dog. Yeah, I think Righteous Fire is not going to be a skill you perma maintain, honestly. This guy would be good for it though, PoE 1 RF. You're supposed to be banned, Kurosaki. How did you get unbanned? I'm going to have to reban you. Any last words? What is Deep Space Nine? Isn't that like some old show? Or is that a movie? What is Deep Space Nine? Do I know this? Oh, it's Star Trek. It's the second best Star Trek show? Corgo is an evil dog. What does that mean? What does deep grandfather mean? I'll look at Huntress stuff too, just so I know it. I don't know if I'll play it maybe later, but I think that character is. I genuinely think your face is in the dirt if you play Huntress. I don't see it. If evasion's nerfed, you can't play game. You can't play this. You just can't play this game with 2,500 life. I don't know what to tell you. This guy looks cracked out. I didn't get much sleep. I think I'm gonna call it. I'll do some leveling tomorrow when I'm fresher and I got more juice. Just fucking stalling till patch notes now. I think the stuff they showed was pretty good. I think if there was anything to slightly be disappointed about for me, it's that we only got one new archetype, and that's the Huntress. They didn't do any Templar, no Druid, no Dagger, no Sword, no Axe, but I mean, whatever, honestly. Like, whatever. It'll come. It'll come. Yeah, I expect all the gems to be like if Hammer of the Gods, whatever number it is like, what, 3,000% attack damage or whatever, I'm expecting it to be like 900 or something like that. Like, I bet everything in the game has been gutted down like that. Every core gem, probably all their scalings have been completely reworked, right? Like, if Hammer of the Gods was 3,000% now, it's probably 900%. Which also means if Earthquake's like 100%, it's probably like 60% or something. Corgo is a baby. I'll just raid someone. We'll do some more bat chesting later, and I'll do some running around like a goober. I'll see who's a gamer to raid. I'll just raid Lily. Sure. GG. I'm tired as fuck. Be back tomorrow, do some stuff. Corgo is the baby. Stat stacking is stupid. It's not gonna exist. Ingenuity's been nerfed also severely. That's, you know what I mean? GG. Be back later.